Board of County Commission setting for October 2000 is the agenda, and we'll go and there's as we go along. First, we'll cover the BLE, the Board of County Commission agenda over. You in it, and so we'll call the meeting to order at 10. And we're to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll move our agenda and any minutes from October 2008. Ask if there's to address the board and any forward to the and then we have the number 2 item. Up to any.
I'd like to follow information related to community out civic center.
Okay. Work sessions. Rates for 19, January 16th, January 23rd, February 6th, July 3rd, August 28th, September 4th, 18th, all 2000.
No.
Alrighty, the next item, which comes to the office, is the existing change $800.
The auditor's office manages a change fund to cash transfer services. This was a change fund $800,000 to maintenance of the new service, which is the passport service. The auditor's office start offering citizens yesterday.
Nope.
Nope. All righty. 3B is good. We're going to move the human administration approving the board realization request to convene for the 2000.
Under 810 Board of Election with the permission of the Board of Commission. And when proceed 5, the number of appeals filed on later. The number of taxpayers petitions filed the Board of Coalition store in 2018 going to the garbage in a way. And I believe the 120 mattresses still have a useful life to provide shelter.
Sure. You said uptick. Do we donate them as is, or do we at least spray them down with Lysol or something?
So
or just take them?
As is. And we already have developed a letter for the nonprofits to sign as they receive those mattresses. They will be responsible for cleaning, and they will be responsible for any replacement, and the county will not have any responsibility for any damages or any replacement in the future.
So they have no intrinsic value to the county?
No, there's no value. There's no financial value to the county.
Good, thank you.
I'd just like to point out that those mattresses are vinyl covered. They're not the typical mattress you think about using at your home, and so they're pretty easily cleaned. And,
not Casper or C. Patriophilia?
No. And they're quite easily disinfected and cleaned up
Nice.
after each
So,
usage.
and again, it's as is, and the local nonprofits, by signing that letter, will take the responsibility of those mattresses.
Big savings for them, and good for the folks utilizing them.
And I believe this is a good action just to support the effort.
All righty. Item 3E is the auditor's office, is the financial services that's online for any reviewing. So I'll move on to department items, which is number 4, emergency services. And this is the appointment to the Emergency Medical Services Council, Mr. Tom Fell.
Yeah, maybe a month ago or so, you approved changing the policy, I believe, as to how the emergency services is made up in terms of the makeup of the members. And you approve that you may consider including a non-voting member on an emeritus position. And this is just the intent to keep some of the institutional knowledge. Some of those individuals that perhaps seeking retirement and yet can still participate in the council. And again, this is a non-voting member, and this particular action is just following up on the policy change that you approved a month ago by appointing Dr. Tom Fell to the Emergency Services Council.
Any issue?
I guess the only thing I would say about that is I'm very glad we're recognizing the doctor for all of his long commitment to emergency services here in Thurston County.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you.
I'm pretty much the founder of the existence of the Medic One process here. So,
Long time ago, I was there.
long time ago.
I was there.
You were there? You were there a long time ago. He's the father of it, so. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 5, which is Public Health and Social Services. This is, the description is approval of amendment number 4 to the Washington State Department of Health 2018-2020 Consolidated Contract, CLH 18264.
Yeah, this amendment number 4 increases the contract by $507,500 for a revised maximum consideration not to exceed $1,672,607 for the duration of January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020. This amendment adds the statements of work for the Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response and amends the statements of work for the Office of Immunization and Child Profile, also known as OICP, perinatal hepatitis B, and promotion and immunizations to improve the rates. Also includes continuing the work with the vaccination rates of tuberculosis program, the tobacco and vapor product prevention and control, childhood lead poisoning prevention program, maternal and child health block grant, and national estuary program on-site sewage management system. There's a lot of programs associated with this particular amendment, and I believe the director is here to answer any questions.
Any questions?
No.
I do, yes.
Yeah, sure.
There's nothing in this regarding, there's several child issues, on child health and welfare and such, but nothing in there regarding, unless I missed it, opioid or fetal alcohol or kids being born meth addicted or with meth in their system and such.
That's correct. This consolidated contract does not include any of those activities.
That's my only question. Thank you.
I guess my question would be, why not?
Yeah.
Those are such,
Is it
we've
consolidated?
declared an emergency, and we know nationally it's a problem. How come we're not addressing that?
Yes, the consolidated contract from the Department of Health includes federal and state allocations. We believe that there will be some additional opioid funds coming from the federal government and possibly from the state as well, but we have not received those yet, and they're not included in the consolidated contract.
That's what I figured it was a state or Fed directed activity.
Yes.
Thank you.
We do have included in this contract additional tobacco prevention dollars.
Tobacco?
Yes.
Well, tobacco doesn't seem to be quite as serious in light of what's going on with the opioids right now.
Agreed. We're searching for every additional opportunity we have to increase funding for the opioid crisis.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, let's see if this one might apply. So this is 5B, which is the approval for the 2019 Veteran Emergency Shelter contracts. And so,
Yeah, the Veterans Advisory Board issued an RFP back in February 2018, and 3 applications were received seeking for funding. The Veterans Advisory Board met in August 29, 2018, and after the review of the submitted applications, they recommended to fund 2 out of the 3 shelter providers. So this proposal before you is two contracts, Thurston County and the Catholic Community Services for $32,850, and with Thurston County Salvation Army for $41,114, for a total cost of $73,964. The action also is requesting for you to allow the Director of Public Health and Social Services to sign the contracts and any amendments that may not exceed 15%.
Any questions?
No.
I do. So 2 out of the 3, who's the third and why not the third?
Good morning.
Hello, Mark.
Hi.
Morning.
So the board met.
Your
and-
name.
I'm sorry?
Your name.
Oh, Mark Moffett, Veteran Assistance Program. And they based it on the criteria on the decision brief on case management, cost, and safety, and interfaith.
So I'm taking there's 3 that apply,
Where's the
and
third?
2 were only qualified.
Two
met the
were
requirement.
qualified.
Yeah, yeah.
And the third one didn't meet the
I
criteria
see.
set forth in those
Okay.
3 points.
Who was it?
Interfaith works.
Interfaith Works.
Okay. Not a problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty. 5C. 5C is the set a public hearing on 2017 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, otherwise known as CAPER, and Gary Aiden has that, but this is for November 27th, 2018.
Yeah, this report is required by the federal by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. The 2017 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, as you refer, Commissioner Caper, for Thurston County, is an annual summary report explaining how federal community development block grant, the CDBG, and home funds were spent for the program's year 2017, which covers the period September 1st, 2017 through August 31st, 2018. And this particular report needs to be held a public hearing. That's a federal requirement. And the action before you is to consider setting a public hearing for November 27, 2018, at 3 in the afternoon in this room.
Any comments, questions?
I
Caper?
I guess my only question would be that this, by setting this public hearing and having this public hearing, then we'll meet certain criteria to continue on with this program, is that right?
And the next step will be after you get public testimony, any potential revisions to the report per se, that you may be in the position to do so and then submit it to HUD.
Thank you.
Nothing? Okay, so that covers 5, item 5, 5A through C. 6, item 6 is the Commissioner and County Manager's items, and we'll address that as we go along at the podium. So next is the Transportation Benefit District. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Hutchings and let me go through that, and then we'll come back to proclamations and awards.
Well, about 3:30, this afternoon, we'll be convening the Transportation Benefit District, or TBD. We'll approve the agenda and the former minutes and give the opportunity for the public to address the TBD board. And 3A on the agenda is a presentation on Thurston County Transportation Benefit District, an overview. And Jennifer, are you going to do that, or is Scott going to do that?
Scott and possibly Scott Davis as well. Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. So we will talk about the transportation system in general, the proposed work plan should the TBD be funded, current funding challenges, and then what happens if the TBD isn't funded. That'll be what that presentation is about.
Okay, any questions on that?
No, not at this time.
Nope.
Live action.
Okay.
Ready to do it.
Takes care of A. Then 3B is a presentation on the TBD communication plan. What are we communicating?
So this will be what our outreach efforts have been to date and what the initial feedback is that we've received.
And what have we been doing outreach on?
On the Transportation Benefit District and what could be done with it.
And what the possibilities?
That is correct.
And the woe is us if it doesn't happen.
Well, I don't know that we've focused on the woe is us if it doesn't happen, but we have certainly focused on what we could do with it if it was funded.
Okay. Is either one of those A or B focusing on the funding, the potential funding of the TVD?
Yes, I think we 2 or 3 months ago provided the potential, the options, and then we'll recap that again in November.
Okay. Questions?
I had a question for you last time, and I can't remember what I asked you.
You asked
Yeah.
about the preparation for flooding and potential roads and what we were doing as,
Oh, yeah,
as we
yeah,
prepare for winter, and we'll be doing a briefing at
Oh,
agenda
that's what
set.
it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, so
Thing
we will
different
be
than that,
addressing
sure.
that on November 6th,
Okay.
I believe.
Number 6, different thing. Sorry.
Nothing else? Okay, 3C, we move on to the director's report. Any sound bite to keep us enticed and excited?
Absolutely. This is going to be discussing what the outlook for the road fund is as a result of challenges in funding across the county.
I can't wait. Gary, anything?
No.
Bud?
Good.
Then we'll adjourn. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Ta-da. Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm going to go back to the main agenda here and see what proclamations and awards need to be discussed.
The only new proclamation I will be having, La Bonita Beaumar, Clerk of the Board. The new proclamation for November, I'm working with Superior Court on Adoption Day. So you'll be hopefully seeing something come through within the next week.
Child adoption.
Yes, yes, child adoption.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay.
We have a proclamation coming up on October 30th, and you receive an email this morning from the Director of Public Health and Social Services, which they have received an award from the state, I believe. And Sheriff's NASA will present the award on October 30th to the Board of County Commissioners. And this is related to fight crime, invest in kids, champions for children. And that is really related to the Nurse Family Partnership program that you have funded and supported. And this award is just the result of the efforts the Public Health and Social Services with this program is having an impact on young lives. And the Director of Public Health is here to explain even more what this award is all about.
Come on up, Jeff. Getting an award for NFP.
Yes. Good morning, Shelley Slatter, Director of
morning.
Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. Yes, we just received word yesterday from Fight Crime Invest in Kids that Thurston County is being selected as their champion this year, and we're very excited about it. It's a huge honor. It's in big part to Gretchen Toller and the Nurse Family Partnership team, as well as Liz Davis, the Director of Child, Family, and Community Wellness Division, that have made efforts to expand home visiting, not just in Thurston County, but in Mason and Lewis County as well, and we're recognized for our efforts for that. But the award is to Thurston County for your investment in children and families and kids in our communities, and we really want to say thank you for the support, and we're very honored to be selected for this, and very happy to recognize our hardworking nurses that do this work every day.
What day is the award?
October 30th.
Okay. Do you know about fight crime and invest in kids?
I know all about that.
That's
And
what I thought
you
you
may,
did.
you may also consider having a redo of the award on the November 6th Board of Health meeting as well.
Sure.
So I think it's worthwhile highlighting on both meetings.
How about you?
I just want to add that what you said, the names that you mentioned, Liz Davis, Gretchen Thaler, and the others that look just like them are doing an excellent, exceedingly great job at PHSS in not only intelligence and strategy, but the passion and the love they bring to the organization and to families is over the top.
Yep.
Yes, I agree. They are making an incredible difference in every family that they touch. And it's also really helped advance home visiting dollars to our entire state and from the National Service Office and the federal government as well, because they really recognize the amazing things that we're doing here. And our teams had the chance to really showcase that to policymakers.
Well, P.S. that includes you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And who will be coming for the award? You don't have to name it now, but bring everybody.
We just received word, but yes, that's what we hope to recognize our entire team.
Yeah, sure. All right. Thank you. Anything else?
I just want to clarify something. Is that our next meeting?
Yes.
After this meeting?
So
Maybe we should
next,
let the
thank you.
public
Next
know
week's
that.
meeting is being canceled
23
because
October.
October 23rd, you are in budget deliberations next week.
Budget. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. So, briefing, public hearing, decisions pending. Let's go with Thurston Conservation District, rates and charges. We had a hearing on 25 September.
Let me, for the public's background information, the Thurston Conservation District back in 2017 it requested for the Board of County Commissioners to approve a new financial model as to how they can fund all the programs and projects they do on a yearly basis. And that was the result of a study conducted by a consultant, which resulted on rates and charges. The rates and charges is allowed by law. And back in 2017, the steps they need to take, the Board of Supervisors for the Thurston Conservation District needs to pass an ordinance submitting the request to the Board of County Commissioners. And you, as a legislative authority, you're the only one who can implement any rates and charges, any taxations, any fees on the citizens of the county. Through the process in 2017, there were a couple of areas related to the public hearings that were not met. And at that point, it was not enough time for the Thurston Conservation District to redo the public engagement. And as a result, you couldn't take an action on the rates and charges back in 2017. Fast forward to 2018. The Board of Supervisors of the Thurston Conservation District have passed a similar ordinance, and that ordinance is included in your packet for your information and was passed early in the year. And also, that has met all the requirements from
Could I
public outreach.
Did you say it was passed, that ordinance was
approved
passed?
by the Board of Supervisors.
Oh, okay, 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 good enough.
By the Board of Supervisors, because they have to pass that as an action.
Sure.
Yes, okay.
Forwarding a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And your prosecuting attorney has reviewed the steps they have taken, and all the steps related to public outreach have been met. As a result, you set a public hearing, and that was scheduled for September 25th. You held public testimony. We received close to 200 comments, both written as well as verbal, of which the overwhelming majority were encouraging the board to approve the rates and charges, that if you approve those, will become effective January 1st, 2019. Out of the 200 or so public testimony, there were about 5 who were opposing to the rates and charges. So you closed the public hearing on September 25th, and you had a follow-up meeting on October 11th last week with the interim director for the Thurston Conservation here was in attendance. You had an hour and 30 minutes conversation with Sarah Moorhead. You had many questions, and as a result of that meeting, you requested a couple of pieces of information. One was requested by Commissioner Edwards related to how a table as to how the 2017, 2018, and 2018, 16, 17, and 18 budgets were put together for the Thurston Conservation District in terms of the revenues and expenditures, That is included in your packet this morning. I gave Commissioner Edwards, since he requested this information yesterday. And also, you requested information as to when the treasurer would like to see this, you taking an action or not on this particular matter. Also, this letter from the assessor is, county assessor is included in your packet. And there is a series of steps the assessor needs to take in order to have this new rates and charges be effective in 2019, January 1st.
Did you say that's in this packet?
Yeah, is included on this is a letter from the assessor.
How deep is that, Romero?
So if you look at this, is probably 2 pages back
Okay.
from the front.
From the front, okay. There we go, thank you.
Okay. And in this letter, they describe all the steps they need to take. One is the district submits the text file for the treasurer's office. The treasurer runs a test and reports exceptions for the district to the district. The district advises the treasurer's office on handling the exceptions, and treasurer holds a special assessment to the Ascent system, which is the local system for billing and collection purposes. So that first step the assessor needs to take is November 16, 2018. This is just a month away. So the decision, not the decision, the direction at this point is whether you like to support or not the rates and charges submitted by the Thurston Conservation District. Question number one for you. Secondly, the proposal before you includes a 5-year period of the rates and charges. So if the commissioners are in the position to move forward with the rates and charges, the next question will be for how long? Any questions?
When do we get to vote? Go ahead. Rhetorical.
I feel that this is developed into quite a complicated activity, and I just want to encapsulate kind of the involvement, at least that I've had. I don't know what my fellow seatmates have had on this particular topic. I was approached last spring by 2 of the conservation supervisors from the Thurston Conservation District. They alleged at least inappropriate expenditures of tax dollars. I don't know much about their activity, and I knew nothing about it at that point in time. In fact, I really didn't know these individuals. Shortly after I started asking questions, the Thurston Conservation District executive director went on extended leave and then resigned. During this time frame, the Thurston Conservation District missed several crucial dates on the implementation of rates and charges, among many allegations as to who was at fault. This year has not went much better. The Thurston Conservation District Board Chair filed a lawsuit against the energy section of the University of Washington, I guess it is, that actually houses the records for numerous conservation districts. During that litigation, he was awarded, and the information he was trying to access had to do with an investigation that they were looking into improprieties at the Conservation District. That information was withheld from them, and eventually a Superior Court judge here in Thurston County settled an award and awarded that individual that brought this action $25,000. It could have been millions if they would have went by the page's request per page. now we have 2 new lawsuits that have been filed against the State Conservation District Board and our own Thurston Conservation District Board that could amount to a large loss of taxpayer money if the lawyer that files this action, this is in federal court and in state court, and he's filed on a contingency. The same lawyer that won the $25,000 has now said, well, he's going to do it for free because he'll get his expenses out of the award. That tells me that he's pretty confident in that. There's no guarantee, though. But still, we are not clear as to the original allegations made. Everything is still up in the air. The State Conservation District Board is now withholding dollars. There's the lawsuits that are pending, and I really have a problem with moving forward with this and giving the Conservation District probably, if we went 5 years, we'd be giving them about $8 million by the time they include grants. If we went 10 years, it'd be $16 million. And I'm not sure that this is a good expenditure of tax money if we don't know where it's going to go. So I just would hate to see this type of money being collected and then possibly being lost to some kind of an award. Even though I support the benefits that the Conservation District brings to us, I just don't think we can move forward at this point in time with this many dollars and not have answers that are complete and concise at this point. So I just feel there's more work to be done on this particular topic. I sympathize with the delays that different ones are having to accept, but I just don't see that we can responsibly give that much money to a group that is basically dysfunctional. So that's kind of that's it in a nutshell.
Point counterpoint. Right up front, I commend Commissioner Edwards when information came to him of alleged impropriety, whatever the word's going to be, whether it be ethical, unethical, or just mismanagement, that he brought it to the public's attention and dug in a bit where he could. I greatly commend him for doing that. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of work. However, for me, is I realize as a county commissioner, Thurston County Commissioner, I don't have oversight of the Thurston Conservation District. That's the state function. And if the state function failed, shame on them. By the same token, the vast majority of people that have responded in email, voicemail, and or at public comment support the rates and charges, and a minuscule amount, verbal or nonverbal, that I'm aware of, even anecdotally, don't support it. And I, like Commissioner Edwards, I really value the work that the Thurston Conservation District, the programs and services they provide to the public are immeasurable and are needed. So I am ready to move on and vote and get this thing off and running. I'm done. I'm just tired of delaying any further because I'm not going to dig any deeper than has been dug, because that's not my job.
I guess I do look at my job as being responsible for the taxpayers' money. If you would go out and ask citizens in Thurston County how the Conservation District supervisors are elected, I would defy you to come up with 1 in 100 that actually understand, because that election is a complete sham. That's being talked about in the legislature now to see if we can't correct that. Those aren't immediate solutions to this particular problem, but I just don't see how we can give a dysfunctional body. If you go back 20 years and check with our local paper of record, look up the articles, this has been going on for 20 years, this same type of intra-fighting between the elected supervisors that oftentimes are elected to oversee millions of dollars by less than 200 people countywide vote in that particular election because nobody knows about the election. So there's a lot of problems. I'm just not willing to give up, you know, it's close to $20 million. If you figure that out for a 10-year period and all the grants that come in that are overseen by the Conservation District. They do great work, but I would rather see at this point us contract somehow with an adjoining Conservation District, Grays Harbor, Mason, someone like that that is effectively running and does not have this history, or even some of it could be absorbed in our own process. Especially, we're doing all the salmon enhancement that we can possibly do with the limited funds that we have. Most of what the Conservation District has to do has now shifted from soil to water quality and hence salmon enhancement. I'd like to see those funds partnered with what we're doing so we could do more and have a coordinated effort instead of having two governmental bodies going in two different directions with no coordination. So that's why I'm opposed to making a decision on this at this point until we get more information, and I know we're up against the time frame.
I again agree with Commissioner Edwards. In the election process is not understandable by the vast majority. I didn't understand it until getting into this position. And the way it was set up was woefully inadequate. But I am glad, again, that you've brought that to the public's attention numerous times. And I'm glad to hear that the legislature is going to jump into the compost pile and try to fix this dadgum thing and take responsibility where responsibility should be held. But again, I'm ready to jump in and as well and just go ahead and vote because the citizens want it.
So, Commissioner, I guess the first question before you will be, would the board support the rates and charges? Question number one. And by meaning by support is depending on how the board feels, staff will bring whatever documentation because you need to have this in a formal meeting, a formal vote. But at this point is you providing direction. So the first question that I have for you is the board supporting the rates and charges?
I'm going to ask for more information from the executive director, so I'm going to have her make a phone call to her first before I go further with your question. So.
And I'll answer it with a yes, I support it, from the standpoint that the way the ordinance has been written, they would be coming back on a routine basis to check in with this board, which gives us a tiny bit of insight, not oversight, but insight. So we are still maintaining good stewardship of the taxpayer dollars, but also reducing 10-year contract down to either 5, 3, whatever years to give us a little bit of safety. So I do support it.
Yeah, as part of the proposal, there is Appendix C, which is a memorandum of understanding between Thurston County and the Thurston Conservation District, which speaks about along the lines that you stated, Commissioner Hutchins. The Thurston Conservation District, on a periodic basis, will need to submit a report and also will need to provide a status to the Board of County Commissioners.
So this is the first I've seen this, so I'm going to restate my position that I'm going to get with the executive director and come back and make a decision later on.
Okay, so I'll bring this matter, I believe.
Go ahead.
The oversight issue that Hutch is talking, Commissioner is talking about, is not binding, and that bothers me. And I'm not sure that that particular memorandum of understanding has been agreed upon by the Board of Supervisors at the Conservation District. And so that also is in jeopardy. So I know we've got some maybes in place. Boy, I'm not willing to give up that many millions of tax dollars on a maybe. So that's kind of where I'm at. Do I support the concept of the conservation district? I certainly do. I want it to be running effectively. If it was such a thing that there was no way to work around this, I probably would settle maybe on some type of a negotiated rates and charges, and maybe give them 1 year of rates and charges, because we can always renew it if it works well. It's much harder to revoke it. So I would be inclined maybe to go for 1 year to keep things afloat and see where this ends up with all the litigation pending and turmoil within the organization. But I need a little more information and a little more time to even reach that conclusion, because that's a fair amount of money. We're talking about well over $1.5 million if we do that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Maybe back to another spot.
Since we have Commissioner Edwards coming closer to approving, I just want to get clarification. Is it easier, or is it equally as easy to extend it and or revoke it?
So that was going to be the second part of my question, the length of the rates and charges. Consulting with your attorney who's here. If you don't feel comfortable, you may consider a length of time less than 5 years, because it becomes a little more difficult for you to rescind that. So if you go for 5 years, it will not be possible to rescind that type of rates and charges in the second, third year. So I stand corrected from my perspective of provided you last time, and that was as a result of me consulting with your attorney.
Okay. Sweet. Commissioner Edwards is correct. It's easier to extend it than it is to rescind it.
Oh, if that's the question, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's easier, but I think easier is a matter of perception.
Perspective. Okay.
It's a process that would probably be more appealing to the majority of the citizens out there that do appreciate what the Conservation District does.
However, we do have Commissioner Edwards closer to an approval, depending on time, perhaps,
Well,
as one issue.
but that's one issue, but I still need more information to look into this, because this becomes very, very complicated, and I'm just too tight with the taxpayers' money to just give it away to a dysfunctional body at this point in time.
So I have a question for you. Considering the timelines the treasurer has put before you, I will bring this matter for your consideration again on October 30th during an agenda setting. So the question that I have for you, is that enough time for you to get additional information? And is there anything that I can help you with and answer any question by reaching out to the Thurston Conservation District?
Yeah, if you can find out a little more about, I mentioned earlier that our own executive director at our own Thurston Conservation District resigned when questions were starting to be asked. I now see that the state executive director is also stepping down. If you can come up with some solutions as to where this whole business about removing supervisors, get a time frame there that the state board is looking into, maybe a time frame involving those 2 lawsuits that are pending that could be financially devastating if this attorney that filed this action wins, which he won his first one. We never know what'll happen. If you can come up with some of those things, that's going to help me to make the decision. And again, I'm very much in favor of what the whole activity around the Conservation District entails. I'm not very happy with the oversight, and possibly if we had that 1 year window, we could take a look at it and maybe get some changes made, and find out maybe when the State Conservation District is going to, they've already I guess they've already rescinded any funding that's going to go forward for this year. When might that be lifted? And might we be able to get an idea of how much money they will be putting into the district like they were in years past?
I believe that question was answered last week by the representative from the State Conservation District, where she believed the funding will be restored by November.
Allison.
Yeah, so, and I don't know what what else would you like
Okay.
to hear from?
I guess that again goes back to a maybe. I'd like to see if there isn't a possibility of a more definite time frame that we could know, because that's on a contingency if certain conditions are met. I don't know how close we are to meeting those certain conditions.
That included training and ongoing such, didn't it?
Right.
The conditions
So
that would go into
in-
next year sometime.
Well, we don't know that.
So I will attempt to answer those questions. It will be extremely difficult to give you a time frame as to when the lawsuits will occur or will not occur.
Yes.
So that is extremely difficult to get to the courts and find out what the schedule of a particular lawsuit will occur. Removing the supervisors, certainly we can ask, but it's up to the purview of the State Conservation District to take any action.
I agree.
So, and that is I know. And also, if I may, and I understand your perspective. I understand your point of view, but I think it becomes difficult. And as you stated, the administrative oversight by the Board of County Commissioners, that's probably where the line is drawn, because the Board of Supervisors of the Thurston Conservation Districts are the ones who provide the administrative oversight and also dealing with any type of personnel matters. So, and I understand your point, and I understand your conundrum. But as I understand the state law, you as a legislative authority has, I believe, a mission to determine any type of taxation to this group, and whether you approve or not those rates and charges based on what you believe this group delivers in terms of projects and programs. So I'm just going to leave it like that. I will bring this matter on October 30th, and we'll continue the conversation.
One more comment.
I guess just to follow up on your comment to the county manager, I think if nothing else comes of this, we're going to have the state legislature that is the ultimate authority on putting this together. They recognize there are some serious problems on conservation districts, and hopefully this will be the impetus that gets this going and really gets it some scrutiny there, daylight on the situation, or whatever you want to call it. But again, I refer back to that whole election process with millions of tax dollars being utilized, and only, as a general rule, less than 300 people vote on this particular issue because the public is just not informed.
Thank you for saying that you understand the issues or the points that we're making, but also the conundrum that we're in. But I don't think you understand the level of frustration that I have over this going on and on. I'm glad that the legislature's getting into it and addressing the folly of the election process, which is folly, but that's not my job. That's the legislature job. They're in it now. I have to trust the legislature will do something to watch it, and I'm ready to go.
We're going to move on. I think we have time to go to item number 3, and then we'll come back to item number 2. Item number 3 is solid waste contracts.
Yeah, item number 3, that's related to the procurement processes related to the solid waste contracts. There was 2 briefings, one July 18th and a follow-up briefing September 26th. Attached for your consideration is the options as to how staff is seeking direction from the board related to the next steps on procuring the services of our contractor. This contract is the contract extremely complicated. Last Tuesday, you authorized to extend one of those contracts to April 2020 to align those 2 contracts. One is for um, disposal and transportation, and the other ones for pickup and operations at the transfer station. So this contract has been in place for just about 20 years. And what we have seen over the last few years is the inefficiencies of the terms and conditions of the contract that really doesn't give us the ability to meet the demands that we currently have now and in the future. And also, the cost of this particular contract is close to $14 million a year. And so that is a significant dollar amount that those contracts will have. So following up on the options that you have, it was one, extending the existing contract to another lengthy period. That doesn't address some of the issues that we have in managing the operations of the solid waste business. The other option will be amend the existing contract, which is, again, I don't think will give us all the ability that we have to have a comprehensive contract. The third option was a direct negotiation with a particular vendor that's qualified by the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission. Although this is allowed by law, that may probably perception sometimes is reality for the county to have direct negotiations on a multi-million-dollar contract. And the last option is for you to consider when going with that request for proposals. And the request for proposals, that's recommendation from staff, that's recommendation from the prosecuting attorney, and that is probably the best way to move forward and most transparent and more responsive way. So the decision, the direction that we're seeking from you is what option would you like to move forward on this particular contract?
Okay. Oh my God.
And again, the recommendation is going with a formal request.
So let me just kind of make sure I got this right. We had one contract this way, and we had another one lagging out here. We bought them to where they're synced on the calendar for April of next year, I think. 2019 or 2020?
2020.
Yeah, 2020, okay. Got that part. Now we're looking at what option to go beyond that.
Right.
And if I understand it, was like 4 options, A, B, C, maybe a D in there somewhere. And that's where I'll lose it. I mean, I understand there's options, but I don't know by title and what they consist of. It's not the first I've heard of it, because I've known of it for 4 years, but I don't know the details of what's being asked of today to make a decision on.
The decision today is what procurement process would you like to give direction? And again, the recommendation from the staff and your prosecuting attorney is to go with a formal request for proposals.
RFP.
And the request for proposals, we're just going to go out, request the proposals, and you will be making the decisions along the way as to who, the amount of money. And again, I'm supportive of this particular recommendation because it really brings transparency to the process, and I think it could have a much better benefit to the citizens.
And time sensitive today to do this?
And the reason is for you to provide direction. We'll bring an AIS to you issued an RFP, and because of the complexity of this program, we need this time just to go through developing the requirements of the request for proposals, and just in 2019 to negotiate this very complex.
So there's RFP plus 3 others.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other 3. I know you just stated them.
Yeah, the other one is taking the existing contracts and just extend them. Okay. The other one is taking the existing contract to see if we can change portions of that.
That's complicated.
And the third option is for the county to negotiate with a specific vendor without a request for proposals. Allowed by law, but not recommended, because a $14 million contract.
Was that those 4 options on 26 September presented?
It was presented in July and September. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do, but again, this becomes a very complicated issue. It's a lot of money when it's all said and done. If I had to take a guess, other than the individual reading material that I've received, I don't know what my other seatmates have received, I've not been able to read all the material, considering everything else that is going on here. I'm going to say we've had a total of possibly 2 hours in different segments discussing some of these things. And I want to go the most transparent way we can go for the public. That's kind of my inclination. But when we're talking about a period of time that could go on another 20 years, and I guess we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in this garbage business, I don't want to rush into making this decision without having a complete understanding of all of the facts. And I don't know, I'm not saying we haven't had more than about 2 hours in incrementally adjusted time that we've discussed this, but it's always in amongst other things. I almost think at some point we need to have a work session where it's going to be all day and really get into the nuts and guts of this whole operation and make sure we do the citizens of Thurston County right by getting this right and not making a mistake. So again, I don't want to sound like I'm not willing to push forward. I'm willing to make those tough decisions, but I think I would prefer, I know we're in the middle of budget right now and we're on a time frame with that, but I'd like to have a little more time committed to discussions on this. I have my my eye on one of these proposals, and I think that's probably the right way to go, but I want to make sure we don't make any mistakes.
Oh, one of the four he just stated.
Yeah, one of the four that we're just recommending.
Okay, how about you? What do you guys say?
I don't know how many hours we've had on it, but even if all three of us said, yes, we want A, B, C, or D, how many more times would this become before the board? Before it's enacted or something signed?
Multiple times.
Multiple times? More than 2? More than 3?
Probably more than that.
More than 4?
Because I think the details are going to be extremely complicated, and I think you need to be part of that decision-making process before you sign any particular contract because of the dollar amount involved and perhaps the length of the contract. So again, from staff's perspective, from your prosecuting attorney's perspective, the most transparent way is with an RFP. In the RFP, you're not committing to anything. You're not committing to any particular vendor. What you're committing to is a transparent process.
Right.
Where you're committed to get the best value to the citizens.
And how many eyes will be on this process and or document before it ever gets signed?
It will be your prosecuting attorneys, your staff, and yourselves.
So several pair of eyes, or I should say several eyes, are on this. And if you make me sit through a 4-hour or 8-hour work session and rolling around in the garbage, I'll be sick that day. I want the most, it seems like of the options, either we're giving one individual company a leg up, or we're icing other ones out. And the final option that you proposed is one that's the most visible, open air, transparent, most involved option that's been vetted by numerous people already. And I don't mean people being professionals already. I'm ready to decide.
And that is the process that we utilize and you utilize when we embark on any particular contracts with any particular vendor when we require services.
So I don't want to be the one playing favorites. I'm ready to go. Knowing that there's a lot more talk before it gets here.
All right, go ahead.
I guess that lot more talk would continue, but it's my understanding if we select one of these 4 options today, that then we're locked in on that particular track from today on. And that is my concern, that we make sure to get it right because of the dollar amount. And so I don't mind sitting through some training or some education process on this, I am not familiar with the garbage service business. It's my understanding there's only two companies that are actually eligible to bid on this. I don't know.
Perhaps three.
You'd think maybe three.
Perhaps three.
Not think, there are three, right? Monica, there's three.
Three? Got a head shake out there from Monica that there's three?
Yeah.
Okay. And I am inclined to go to the same way my fellow commissioner is recommending. But I don't see the big rush. If we make the selection now, then we have to go this route. Now, if you're telling me I'm wrong, that this particular juncture in time does not affect which direction we go, well, then maybe I'm all for the open and transparency, but I want to make sure that we don't give up other options that might be brought to our attention that, hey, wait a minute, you missed this portion of this. If you do this, the county taxpayers get a better deal. That's my whole thing, is so the county taxpayers get the best deal.
I am not in a position to tell you that you're wrong. That is
Well,
not
I
my
don't mind
job.
being told I'm wrong.
I think as a staff member, we'd like to provide you with the options before you as to what additional information do you need to make an informed decision. That's on us. And at this point, the option before you, the preferred option from the staff, gives you the most transparent way to conduct this business. And that is what's proposed before you.
I just want to formally apologize to our Public Works Director, Jennifer Walker, who's in the audience, sitting off to the side when I went to Monica instead of going to you, Jennifer. Thank you.
No problem.
So I would also just say, from a finance perspective, the proposed option is the most competitive and will result in the best price to the citizens. That's the whole point of the RFP process.
I guess I want to follow up on that and say that I don't understand all the options. Obviously, I've looked at the one that's been told to us by staff that it's the most transparent. And that's kind of where I'm going. That's where I'm leaning, so to speak. But in reality, if I have a constituent come up to me and say, well, you made that decision on 4 hours that you spent on a $200 million project and you don't know anything about garbage, I'm going to depend on staff to help guide me through this. But I just don't want to be pushed through it. I want to be kind of educated as time goes on, make sure that citizens out there might see this debate that we're having today. Somebody with some knowledge might call in. That's the whole idea of having these open meetings, have them televised, let the public know what we're doing. Somebody could get back to me and say, wow, if you do this, you're missing out on this, this, and this.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I think you have the right to engage any of your constituents, but I strongly encourage the board not to engage with any particular vendor associated with this contract or potential vendors.
I agree. I've heard
Perhaps
that.
perhaps a tour of the work is in your future, Gary.
No, I've not had a tour
But
of
perhaps
work.
that's in your future.
Well,
though.
maybe so, yes. Yeah.
All right, 30 October. We'll come closer to it on 30 October. Anything else?
Well, I don't know if you want to take a break or hit the last indecisive issue that we have.
The last one that's hanging fire.
I'm gonna take a break for 10 minutes, and then I'll come back.
appointments. 'Cause I'll show up for something, it's been canceled too, the other way around. No, it's not right. So I'm sorry about yesterday. Because Kelly had it and I didn't.
All righty, we're back and we're covering the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. We just completed 2 of the 3 items under the briefing and public hearing decisions pending. Now we're going to move into the last one of that particular session, which is the section, which is the Lakemore open space application.
Yes,
A little
allow
framing
me
and then we'll
to frame it.
try to work through it.
You received maybe a few months ago an open space application, Lakemore, and it was heard by the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission submitted a recommendation for you to approve this particular application, which includes recreation activities. You held a public hearing on September 28th, and during the public testimony, you received significant public testimony that it was pro and against this particular application. And the issue mainly is related whether this particular open space application should include recreation activities or not. Staff is here to walk you through again the different steps. But at least from my understanding, I don't think there is an argument from the citizens to move forward with the open space application. I think the critical element is whether to include the recreation activities as part of this application or not. So Andrew and Josh are here to answer any particular questions, and hopefully to get to the point of you give us a direction as to what the steps, how you'd like to proceed on this.
Do you have any background? If not, I'll just go straight to questions.
I don't have anything new to
New.
add. I'm just here to address any questions.
Okay, sure.
Can I just get just a real brief, as you would say, 32-second overview on recreation or not? What would recreation be, and if not, what would that look like?
So what the application is a reclassification of, for tax purposes. Right now, the current use classification does not allow any sort of recreational access. The Community Club Board has indicated that they wish to install a trail on the property, and in order to maintain their open space tax classification, they would need to reclassify to a category that would allow that use. So at this time, the use that's being considered by the Community Club Board is a recreational trail, but that use is separate from the actual application. Putting that property into a category that enables recreational use opens the door to whatever recreational use they would want to pursue. It just so happens that they're pursuing a trail at this time. That trail does not require any other county approval or permits, as they have indicated. If they wanted to do some sort of recreational use that did require permits, we'd be going down that road, but they've given no indication that that's what they're pursuing.
So recreational, go ahead. Recreational or not, it is still closed. It's not open to the public.
Correct.
Okay,
Right now, it is not.
okay.
Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Did you have a question, Commissioner? Sorry.
No, I'm waiting until you're done,
You
sir.
got the mic, go ahead.
So I just, those are all, I think, important details to the application, but I think that the important thing to remember is that this is a valid application that the county has received. And so the question on the table for the commissioners is, as the county manager stated, is do we move forward on the accepting of the application that is valid? And the other details, I think, are questions for the community.
Go ahead, Gary.
When did this process start with the Ken Lake Association? When did they first approach county government to make this change?
So they were in the research phase as of a few years ago, but the actual application was made in July of 2017. And typically what we do, because these applications just require a lot of process to go through the Planning Commission and the board, we hold them, we bundle them, and if we have a number of them, we start them, at the beginning of the year. So it's been on, my radar as an official application since July. but we don't start the process until the beginning of the calendar year.
So it's been on our radar maybe since January of this year?
On your
Yes.
radar, yeah, because the annual cycle of staff going through and working on the applications and then bringing them through the Planning Commission and the board typically starts in January.
Do you know any of the background involved with the association itself on, they've had several discussions, apparently several elections possibly to their own board of supervisors, if you will, for their community. What I'm getting at, has there been adequate discussion, as far as you know, for individuals to enter into this arena, I guess, that are members of that particular community? I take it the complexion of the board has changed since this was brought to our attention, and did anything change from the application standpoint? I mean, was it part of a community election? What I'm wondering about, it sounds like there's about 270 or 80 homes out there, and possibly 100 folks were involved in this discussion. Do you know any of those particulars of what went on internally at Ken Lake?
I don't know all the specifics from the community side of it. I know that the application was made in 2017 by the majority action of one board, one of their community club boards. They did have an election at the beginning of 2018, and the new board did not change that application, or they did not, withdraw it or anything like that.
So that was the change of boards in 2018?
There was a change of boards, and then, it's still an application that's before us. And
So I just want to make sure I get this straight. So a board in 2017, or maybe even earlier, discussed this and eventually made a proposal to you to make this change, to the county, to make this change.
their president is the one who signed the application and submitted that application to the county.
And is it my understanding now there is a new president
That's correct.
and possibly new board members?
There may be, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what turnover there was. I know that the president in 2017, when that application was made, is no longer on the board, and there is a new president.
I know we don't normally elicit comment from, but if I could get a head chase, is there new board members that went along with the new president in 2018? I don't know. Do you guys know?
So what we know as staff is that new board did not rescind the
Yeah,
old board's
that's what I'm
application.
wondering, if the complexion of the board itself changed, or just the president. Is there any chance we could clarify that?
I'm not taking any public.
Yeah,
comment.
we can't have comment on it, so, because it's.
I can
kind of
look into that.
one-sided.
I can look into what was the makeup of that board, specifically the individuals last year versus who was still on that.
I guess
Where's
what my
that coming
concern is, I'm not thrilled on settling a family squabble. That's kind of my initial blush on this, that it's a family squabble. But, because there's a pro and con from that particular group as to whether they want to move forward or not. All I'm wondering about, I think I've had everything else answered. I'm wondering, okay, so we've had a change of the president of the organization. Both the current president and a past president apparently agree with the way the county is moving forward and the Planning Commission's recommendation. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
We know that the first president submitted the application, and the second president, the current president, did not rescind it. We can't speak to their agreement or disagreement.
Sure, but so the only thing that I haven't found out yet, and I hope this wasn't covered in testimony that I missed, the board president has changed, and that's an elected position apparently. I think some of the membership has changed, and it seems like the community in general wants to continue going the way the Planning Commission has advised us to go. I mean, that's the only thing I can assume, because They made an application, the planning commission said, they blessed it and said, yeah, let's go ahead with it. Is that basically right? So I'm inclined to go ahead and go with it, with the planning commission's recommendation. I have that one little question on the membership of the board. Did that also change? Was there just one or two people? Did they change? So the debate was aired adequately, and I'll feel better about settling this family dispute if I had just that one more piece of information. And I had asked,
What specific question do you have?
well, I had asked earlier if I could go out and take a tour with an opposition person and a pro person.
Pro and a con.
A pro and a con at Ken Lake. Council told me that I should not do that. So I'm just following council's advice.
So now you're asking them,
And
But you had the offer of Andy going out, didn't you?
now I would like to know
Yeah.
at least that question that I probably could have asked
you got it over with.
and got it over with.
So what's your question?
So I'd like to know that. Is the complexion of the board also changed?
Can you
Just
answer
a
that?
little bit,
At
so
some
that-
point in time, not now, maybe?
That would be a fairly quick turnaround, but yes, we can answer that question.
Okay.
So answering that question, Commissioner, is that a hinge point for the board to make a decision?
No,
on this
not for the
application?
board.
It's not,
No.
not for the board. I'm not speaking for the board. I'm saying for myself.
Okay, so.
I missed that somewhere along the line.
So before perhaps you cast a vote on this particular application, do you
Yeah.
need that information before?
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I would like to know that it was adequately aired in that community. There was plenty of opportunity for the pros and the cons to have all their discussion. And in the democratic process, it looks like the pros have come out on top on this. And I'm inclined to go with the pros. I'm asking that one simple question. I asked if I could go out, take a tour of the location, look things over.
But you couldn't.
So
They're
I
gonna
was
ask,
advised I couldn't.
they're gonna ask the question
So
for you now.
speaking of the democratic process, what the other two commissioners feel about this
Oh.
application?
Okay.
If we go with the recreation question, and that is, right now it's just a trail, what process would it be involved if they wanted to put in an amusement park or somewhere in between a trail and an amusement park?
Any additional uses that they would, well, first we hope they would call the county and say what permits would we need for something like that, or
Yeah.
is that allowed in the zoning? But any recreational use that they wanted to do would go through the proper vetting process here at the county.
It would come back.
Yeah, we looked at, and that's how this all started, was questions about if they wanted to build a trail, how would they do that? What would that look like from a county perspective? And we ran it to ground based on the information they provided and determined they didn't need any permits for that specific use. But if in the future they want to do anything that's more intensive and it requires county permits, then we would, take that through the proper channels, and CPED would work on that with them.
And the majority of that, of Lakemore were in favor of the recreational?
Ken Lake.
I'm sorry, Ken Lake?
So as far as the testimony
Lakemore Open
goes,
Space.
I received written testimony from 36 individuals. 30 of them were pro, 5 of them were con, 1 was neutral. When it comes to the testimony you received verbally, it was 9 people were pro, I think 8 were con at the
Okay.
mic.
So going, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just there was just an email from the city of Olympia, just clarifying that the city would not require any permits as well, because the trailhead parcel is within the city and the
Right.
big parcels within the
That was the
unincorporated
neutral?
county. Right.
Yeah,
it was
that-
just
we can throw that
information,
aside.
but we put it all in there, warts and all.
So we've had 10 months where we've discussed this and public hearings and such. And some of these things that Commissioner Edwards is bringing up is it a need to know or nice to know? Well, it might be nice to know, but I don't need to know that. Now, like the Thurston County Conservation, as a Thurston County Commissioner, I don't like government overreach, and so I'm not getting into associations or HOAs or how people do their internal business. It's not my job. The application came to the county. Planning Department approved it. Went to the Planning Commission. They approved it. I'm ready to vote.
Okay. What is it?
Do I get counterpoint, sir?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'm kind of hanging my hat at this point in time on, you had 8 I don't know, 8 cons, 9 pros or something that came to us during a public hearing. I don't think the public really understands that we, this Board of County Commissioners, have never discussed any of this other than in a few times in the public arena in which we're abiding by the law. So that's kind of what I'm up against. Here I am, I'm receiving public comment during a public comment period. I get kind of a split decision, if you will, from that particular community. All I'm asking is, did the board also change a little bit? I mean, it looks like it did to me, and I would turn to my fellow commissioners and say, if you know the answer to that,
I don't know.
I'm willing to vote now if it kind of makes sense, and I'm willing to go with the Planning Commission, what they recommend. But when I get an 8-9 split,
All right, let him have a chance.
that's kind of what I'm up against. I want to do the right thing.
This is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's democracy. It's
Okay.
preponderance of the evidence.
Well,
I'm ready to go.
okay.
Okay, let me try a couple things here. This is open space, and this is not open space.
It is, yeah.
So describe the difference between open space versus open space.
Sure. So what we refer to as
I
open,
know that
open.
sounds weird, but people
Right.
don't know this. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
So what we refer to as open is a subcategory within the overall open space tax program.
Okay.
So there's 4 main categories of open space. 2 are managed by the assessor's office. That's designated forest land and agricultural open space.
Okay,
And then-
assessor, but okay.
Right, and then 2 are the purview of the Board of County Commissioners. 1 is the farm and agricultural conservation land, which is most of what you see, but this year, this application is within that broader open space category, which is a very general catch-all category.
It could be anything then.
It can be wildlife habitat, it could be recreation, it could be archaeological resources, it could be any number of things. There's a number of categories within the public benefit rating system that was adopted by the county that constitute that broader open space category.
So we meet a criteria, processual definition of accepting,
Correct, and that's what we look at.
even
is
though
that-
it's broad sweeping.
Right.
Because I've never heard of the recreational portion of this in my, we've done 19 of these together or something like that? I'm looking at
it's
him because.
private recreation area is the category that they've applied for, and that's within that that catch-all in the public benefit rating system. And
So what kind of tax reduction are we looking at?
currently, they receive a 70% reduction on that parcel just based on the approval.
And it's not a true reduction, it's a shift, isn't it?
It's a reduction for them, but the county still collects that same amount of tax, so
From
it's
whom?
shifted to the other representative or other property owners within that tax.
Do the other
area.
property owners know that they're going to receive that increase?
I don't know that they all do. We send notice to the immediate property owners around the parcel, but we don't necessarily notify. Some of those things go countywide, because some taxing districts are
Right, and
countywide.
those that when you shift, did they get a chance to say that they want to accept that increase or not?
I don't believe so, not specifically.
Right, so we've been through this before, you and I have, right? Whereas the shift happens, person X doesn't know that the shift is happening, and they increase of property. They think that it's okay, it's cool to have the recreational thing, but they don't know that they're going to take the additional charges because there's just a lack of communication there as far as how shift works. It's common to shift, I get that, but I just kind of worry about that aspect of it. Not everybody knows that they're going to receive a shift, an increase, if you will.
And that's something we can try to work on in the future, how to better identify all the folks that might be affected and how we might consider
Yeah, I know.
letting them know.
We went through this one time before, because if
Yeah.
you start letting,
If you pull on a thread,
right,
it's
it
what
starts the
unravels.
whole
Right.
unwinding. Yeah, go ahead.
Elizabeth had a.
Oh,
I defer.
I just have that problem, though, and the community issue, if there's still a different disagreement. And she needs a microphone.
So,
I think it'll be.
Elizabeth, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. I just wanted to draw.
Elizabeth, can you put it to your mouth? There you go.
I just wanted to draw the attention, the board's attention to what criteria you may look at in approving or not approving an open space application, and that is 8434037. And all those criteria that you need to look at do not include the current or past makeup of the board. In other words, if you were to base a decision on what you discover if the board changed or didn't change, and you based your decision on that, that could be viewed as an arbitrary and capricious decision because you're not making a decision based on the criteria that is set out in statute. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Would that include the Thurston Conservation District?
I'm only talking right now about, I don't want to mix subjects.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
No, don't go back
Specific
there.
to open
It
space
just triggered me, I'm
applications.
sorry.
He's still on there. Okay.
So back to one of the initial points about that Commissioner Edwards made on the tour of not going out to the location with a pro or con. I do believe in that conversation also that CPED staff did offer to go out with you and not have citizens there, but to have our staff accompany you on that.
Oh, okay, I guess I wasn't aware of that. Somehow that got lost in the mix.
It came up during a briefing or an agenda setting. It was, but it wasn't a specific email or anything. But if any of the board wants to go out with staff, you know, we're able to.
So we're not under the same
read that in an email.
restriction about going with a pro or a con. So I was trying to
Right.
kind of go along and kind of visit with both sides and get a little understanding of what was going on. Okay, so now I'm told that I can visit it, but
Only with county
only
staff.
with a staff person.
Well, you, as an individual citizen, you can do whatever you'd like to do. We're not telling you that you can't do anything. It's advised by staff that we will accompany you to the site, and it has been advised by legal counsel that you don't choose to go out with citizens of the Lakemore area, and also, if you're on site, to not engage with them on their thoughts on this matter. But CPED staff is here for you. If you need what you need, we'll go with you to the site. But from our perspective, again, as staff, we have a valid application that we've received from this community.
Oh my God, it just brings up so many more questions. So this is a quasi-judicial now? No? So
It's just approving the
so
application.
it's just advised not to go out and talk to the citizens? Okay.
Because related to the public hearing.
Okay, yeah.
You've received the comment.
It's so frustrating to me as an individual that I can't gather all the facts that I think I need. I'm not saying that would be all the facts, but it's so frustrating to me as an individual that wants to do the right thing, as I feel my seatmates want to do the right thing as well. And we have to abide by all these rules, and I guess they're there for a good reason. It's kind of like the three of us never get to talk about any of these issues. And that's because of the Open Meetings Act, and I'm sure it's there for a reason. So we only get to hear when we have a topic on our plate, so to speak, at one of these public meetings.
All right.
So
let me
now
try.
I'm kind of in a dilemma.
So have we met the definition, have we met the actions of letting people know that the shift is coming? That's what, those who are, I think there's like a 1 mile radius or some 5.5, what is it that they have to be met?
We're required to notify people within, I think it's within 300 feet if you're in the urban growth area, or within 500 feet in outside of the urban growth area. That's the only
So that's in the
notice
city,
requirement.
that's in the city, right? The place, the land location we're talking about is within the city?
It's within the urban growth area.
It's not in the city limits,
No,
literally? Okay,
no,
okay.
it's immediately adjacent to the city of Olympia, but it's in the urban growth area.
Okay, it's
for-
barely then, it's just barely outside the city,
Right.
because I know where it is. Okay, so it's in the UGA, and so now what's the number again that require beyond?
300 feet.
300 feet. Oh my God, 300 feet of, and I can't remember the, and now I'm being specific for a very good reason. 300 feet, and I forget if it's a rectangular or diamond, it doesn't matter, of that particular geometric shape to let people know there's nobody living there, so how are you going to shift?
Oh, okay.
I'm so worried about that. I am really. This is not the first time we've had this conversation.
And the notification, I think, is more related to the land use element, not necessarily the tax shift piece.
Okay, we don't do either one. Oh, we do one, we don't do the other. Hang on, I wasn't finished. And then how many pros and cons do we have of this?
As far as all the written testimony I've received since the start, it was 36 individual commenters, 30 of which were pro, 5 were con and 1 was that neutral.
Okay.
And then in your public hearing, the verbal testimony was 9 pro and 8 con. Related, and it was more related to the
So it's more of a community
recreational
dispute
use
thing. There's
versus-
another issue there. Okay, go ahead.
Just maybe for a clarification, apparently the taxing district in which this would be shifted to is more than the Ken Lake community, is that what I'm hearing? Even though you went out 300 feet as far as your notification process, the taxing district could be 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet all the way around, is that what I'm hearing? So only a certain segment
It's only notification.
of the community within that district got even notified about this shift?
So I would jump in. The property tax, and I'm assuming that the property tax for this property would be further reduced by this action?
No.
No.
This action will actually increase.
Increase the property
taxes
tax.
for
So
the
all of
community.
the surrounding
Well, that's kinda good, but
property
kinda
owners'
bad.
Well,
taxes
they'll
would
get a
go
break.
down,
Yes.
not up. So there is that, and then I would also say that there was, in accordance with the law, notification of public hearing. That is all of the public. That's a notice to all of the public, not just this little section close by. And the public, the information was provided for that hearing, and they have an opportunity at the public hearing, countywide, to come in and comment
For what purpose, though?
for the purpose of the land use, but this public hearing includes information about the tax shift.
If you know to look for it. We know to
Well-
look for it. So, okay, go ahead. That's me. I'm being picky. What else?
But in this case, all the other taxpayers would pay less tax should the board take this action.
Okay, that's good to know. All right.
Thank you.
But did that notification go out still? I'm just curious.
So I think Robin provided an important clarification, so thank you. The public hearing notice is countywide. So if we need to look at what the content of that so that it is more clear of all the consequences of these applications for all of our residents, we can certainly do that. But that is our mechanism to notify the public
Good
at
answer,
large,
Andrew.
is the public hearing notice.
Good catching on to her what she said.
That's what he does.
Maybe also I might ask Andy to talk about the process for what the next steps are, so that this isn't necessarily just a vote.
Right. Yeah, so it is a legislative action, and so these decisions are ultimately made at an official Board of County Commissioners meeting in the future. So the next step from the board, whenever you're ready to make that step, would be to direct staff to come back at a regularly scheduled meeting and
When do
to
we
hear your
start that?
decision.
Between the AIS.
When did we start that?
Well, as soon as you provide direction, then we'll bring an AIS for you
But
to
we've never
prepare.
done an open space. Oh, we have, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
typically they're done
yeah.
at the hearing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
We come
yeah.
back
A
and
formal,
ratify them.
a
Formal
formal
vote.
action
You're right.
and board meeting.
But
Okay.
not today?
No.
No, today you're looking for a direction for staff to bring that matter for you to take a formal vote.
Are we looking for more information to come back?
Well, that's
He has one question.
That's the-
Well, I
that's the
don't get, I
board's-
guess I don't get an answer to my question.
Now we're gonna get the,
That's a board prerogative, whether you want to hold providing direction until additional information is provided to you, or you're in the position to provide direction today to go ahead and approve this application or not.
sure, we know where you're at.
We've only had 10 months. I want it on today.
Okay. I want to get clarification on his question.
I guess no matter what, we can't vote on it today. Is that what I'm hearing?
There's not a vote anyway.
not a
today.
vote.
It's not
It's
a
a
vote,
guidance.
it's just you provide direction to staff so we can prepare the formal action for you to take.
And so that would be at our next board meeting, is that what
The
you're
next,
saying?
if, depending on what the direction that you provide today will be October 30th.
Yeah.
It's no matter what, it's the 30th. So ask your question, then I'll get back to you. We'll see what the 30th.
Well,
party said.
I can't ask the question
Yeah, you know.
anymore. I can't find out the makeup of the board. It doesn't sound like, and that's just a restriction that I have to live with. So I'm probably ready to move forward with
We don't have a
vote.
choice, it's the 30th anyway, so.
Okay.
There's not a vote today.
Okay. We can't vote even if we want to. so-
No, you cannot.
Okay, so you want to know what? What are we giving a thumbs up on?
We'll try to bring it to the AIS on the 30th.
So do you want to bring an AIS for you to take a formal vote on the 30th? Approving
Yeah, I guess.
this
so.
application?
All right,
as
that's what we're
presented.
gonna do then.
Okay. Thank you.
Who said government was effective? It's just there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go past legislative update and PIO check-in and knock out a few of the commissioner items. And then we'll come back up to legislative update, because it's not too hard on that and PIO. So, on the commissioners' items, we have Lake Lawrence, Development Code Amendment, Home Dollars, and Advisory Board and Commissions. And if Lake Lawrence is CPED, is the Development Code Amendment also CPED?
Now, Lake Lawrence is Public Works, Development
Public.
Code is CPED, and Home Dollars is myself and Shelley. Shelley and myself.
All right, so which one are we gonna go
If
first?
we could have impervious surfaces, it'd be my,
Okay, we go 2,
My
3, and
concern.
1. 2, 3, and 1.
Commissioners, this is a follow-up to a briefing that you had maybe a couple of weeks ago asking for the status of this particular development code amendment in the previous surface. So I asked the staff to come with more specific information for you to have a clear understanding as to where we are and perhaps what we need to do. As you heard at that briefing, that perhaps this particular item was not addressed or not quite yet been addressed as part of the Development Code Amendment. So staff is willing to give you more detail associated with this particular item today.
All right. So first I want to say I'm not the expert on LID, so I might have to capture some of your questions if they get into the weeds too much.
Thank you.
So we did come to you at your planning session, Josh did, to talk about where we're at on the LID code update. And we told you we hadn't really done too much on it. We have been, of course, doing other items on it, particularly in tracking what the issues have been over in current planning, and trying to map out several different scopes of what the final docket item could be. And remember, at the beginning of this year, you did place it as in your top 5 docket items, with Josh did pass those back out to you. So it is one of those items to work on, along with these that you see listed here. Of course, we did work on the building code item earlier in the year, which is another high priority item. But just to do a little background again on LID code and why we're at where we're at now is, so ecology required the county, actually most all counties, to come in and address low impact development in their development codes and in their drainage standards. And that was to be completed by the end of 2016, and that's why we adopted those amendments at the end of 2016. That process involved a state community stakeholder process that included the master builders at the time, environmental groups, and other community stakeholders with that. At that time, the stakeholders had said that the 60% limit was too high, so they were looking at other alternative limits, and they arrived at the 10% limit primarily for the larger lots in the 1 to 5, 1 to 20, 1 to 10 zoned areas, and then also with a larger, or 10,000 square feet, whichever is less. And that, is my understanding, is one of the most problematic aspects of what we did adopt were those standards for those smaller lots, and then some of the 2.5 to 5 acre lots too, and the crediting that methodology that was allowed in the code. That's just kind of more of a nutshell description of it. And so some of the ideas that we've looked at is coming up with one is a targeted short process amendment where we go after the most problematic portions of the code itself, dealing with those smaller single family lots to alleviate those issues for them. And then there's a longer term approach as well, where we might take a more holistic look at it. Of course, there's different staff time associated with both of those. We don't have specific estimates on those. We know that the larger one would be a significant lift for staff. The smaller, shorter amendment that's targeted would take probably quite a bit less staff time. And some of those ideas that we're thinking of would be to exclude what we would call ineffective impervious surfaces, such as the longer driveways that are fully dispersed on a property, from counting as the hard surfaces. Also expand the crediting to smaller lots. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a cutoff of 2.5 acres where you can't use the credits on those lots that are 2.5 acres or smaller in the 1 to 5, 1 to 10, and 1 to 20 zoning districts. And so it would expand the credits. We would also come up with an approval process for those smaller lots that would be administrative in nature, or fully administrative in nature, and to make sure that they don't have to go through a full-blown hearing examiner process. And we'd also look to create some standard designs and templates that would also ease the application process for the single-family homeowners. So that's a real nutshell.
That's in a nutshell?
of that.
So I think Jeremy did a pretty good job for not being the expert on
She
this
got
issue.
information from the tax
I think he
rules.
did well.
She
And so what I'd like to
damn
just
things.
make sure that we're clear, Allison Osterberg
they
has
have
done a
phone
lot of the
numbers
work on the actual this topic, but Jeremy being the lead on the development code topic is kind of how these two things
Will
have
she
a
be
nexus.
back? Will she be
And if
back
you look
before
at
lunch?
this piece of paper that you have here,
No, I'll just leave
this
it here. If she can
provides,
find
the
it,
green
great.
one
If she
provides a
cannot,
high-level timeline
no harm, no foul.
of what staff has been doing in the interim process while we've been working also on the development code docket. So you'll see on the green, in the second box area, the high-level piece here, 2015 to 2016, that's where Jeremy says that 2016 we adopted the code, the LID code, and then we've been monitoring what those changes that we can make to make it more effective have been. So the code that was adopted in 2016 provided consistency, and now we're trying to figure out what more we can do and do better. And so those are the ideas that Jeremy referred to. If you flip, if you flip the page or go to the blue one, the blue one provides more detail on the ideas that staff has come up with to include into the development code docket when we get to that place in 2019 as directed by the board. So staff has been working on the LID topic diligently over the past year, collecting comments, better understanding where we can make fixes, and are prepared in the new year to provide those options to the board when we talk about the development code. So there's lots of technical pieces to it. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that staff has had this on the radar and that we are engaged in this process.
Go ahead.
I am looking for common sense and simplicity while we protect the environment. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So, do I understand that the 60% was, when you said that was too low or too high, and 10% was either too low or too high? I can't remember. It seems like we could have been 60%, but we settled on 10% for whatever reason.
So the previous standard in those lower density zoning districts was 60%. And the stakeholder group came to the conclusion, and I wasn't here then, that that was too high. And also the science didn't support that high of an impervious surface. So they came up with 10% for properties that are 2.5 acres or larger.
Oh, okay. Could we do something as simple as, I don't know, maybe a happy medium? There must have been some discussion on why or why not. Mm-hmm. If we were to do something like 30%, say, apparently we're allowed some leeway on what we just have to do something, and we're allowed some leeway to set those parameters. So could we do something like 30% and not have all of this activity that is entailed in the permitting process and allowing a citizen to do something? I mean, one of the things you mentioned was maybe eliminate the impervious driveway. When you have a long driveway, I know that's added up towards that 10% and really doesn't make a lot of sense to people. So could we come up with a compromise and just say, okay, let's make it 30%, eliminate the driveway and go forward, and make it simple on staff, relatively simple on the citizen that has to go through this, and still protect the environment?
So yes, the answer is all of those things are on the table. And when we talk about the 60% and the 10%, we think of the 60% as the ceiling, and then we've got to pull you back. Or
Okay.
the 10% as the floor, and then you get to earn credit. And so all of these options, so you can set the floor at 30%, but you still have this need to make sure that the standards are met. And so you've got to have our standards first met, and then show us that you've got places where this water can drain.
Okay.
And so it's not about restricting as much as it's about allowing an opportunity to show us how you're going to take care of these options.
But what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to set a standard in place that would work for all parties without spending days working on this particular issue. And for simplicity, would just changing it to 30%, which is kind of a happy medium, that's a negotiated settlement, if you would, and eliminate those long driveways. Because I know that people like to have setbacks from the road, for an example. So they happen to own 5 acres. They put a driveway all the way back to the end of their property. Now they've used up all their space that's allowed, so to speak. So could this board adopt 30% and eliminate the driveway? And then if you have those very unique situations that look like the individual needs 40%, and we'll mitigate for a gravel basketball court or a parking area or something, a pervious area to mitigate some of that. We can work that in if we need more than that. I don't see very many cases that we would need more than that 30%. That's quite a footprint, if you will. And that's probably why they said 60% was too much, maybe at some
Any
point in
comments?
time. So I'm looking for a
30%
simple
good?
fix.
My other couple of questions. The purpose of this follow-up is to give direction to staff to move. I'm looking at this 2018 code review, the green one. And it says direction to move ahead with the code review. You already determined the smaller targeted and large scope?
Good.
That's been done?
Oh, so what we'd, I believe, talked to you about 2 weeks or so ago is coming back to you to discuss those top 5 items and prioritize those with the board on which items we would bring forward to set for our docket for 2019 on what we're going to work on. So that's the larger docket that Josh had handed out to you at the beginning. So we need to put them in context and figure out where our staffing availability is and how many hours we have to put towards each of those items.
So this is not on here now? Because I don't see it on here.
It's on there, actually. It's A7.
Is it 7?
Yes. Third item down on the
Got it. Okay.
So
Okay.
to kind of skip back, to answer your question, Commissioner Edwards, yes, we will accept those ideas. We're in the idea building phase. And then to answer your question, Commissioner Hutchings, yes, it is on our list to do, and we will do it when we're given the direction to engage more specifically on these topics. But in the meantime, we're still building that information and have some ideas like the driveway, like the less than 2.5 acres, and we'd like to discuss those with you. But the direction that we receive is, okay, staff, now we're ready for you guys to do this on the development code docket. Instead of the other stuff you're doing, do this and do it now. And so that's when we say direction in 2018 plus on the green one, that's the direction that we're saying.
All right, and what I don't see, though, is the number of hours that would entail.
We have,
So is that here on the back here? That's not on the back?
I think we have that in a more detailed LID on the docket. We have gone through that when we had the docket conversation,
Okay.
but we don't have that here on this one.
All right.
Do you have it off the top of your head? Don't, you don't have to answer.
It would be more than 30, but less than 5 or fewer than 500?
It's probably fewer than 500 for the probably fewer than 500 for the short one. The original 500-hour estimate, I think we put on there for a more comprehensive approach to LID. I'd have to work with Allison to come up with a more specific numbers for that short scoping.
And I know that's raw, but just give me an idea.
Rob?
If you were to shift your time, or more to Josh, if you were to shift some of your staff's time to this, to be working on this right now, what would be put on hold?
Well, so for development code docket, it's a lot of Jeremy's current work, and it's about the prioritization about what's on the docket currently and what we need to get done. And so I specifically would pass that along to Jeremy.
Well, I know right now I'm in charge of putting together the county's report for our community rating system review, which is on November 14th. I know until that time I have to be dedicated to working with all the county departments to compile that information and all the necessary memoranda for that. After that, I'm waiting on, I would come back to you to talk to you about what your priorities are for what you want me to kick off in the first part of 2019. It's back to this, yes.
Okay, I guess what I need to know from you folks, or from the county manager as well, if we could agree, if this board could give you 3 thumbs up to do something around common sense. 30%, eliminate the driveway, move forward, try and make it, we want to make it as easy as we can on you so it's less complicated, takes less time, and that can help us move towards proper economic development, because this becomes that type of an economic development roadblock. So by reaching a common sense solution, we can still protect the environment, we can encourage economic development, we can allow individuals to do certain things with their property, not excessive, just kind of that happy medium. And I need to know, do you need like 3 thumbs up? So I would give you 1. I don't know how my fellow seatmates feel about this. So we get you doing the drive. I'd give you 2 if I could, but I can't. So anyway, is that what we need? Do we need another thumbs up on this very limited proposal that I'm suggesting?
Not necessarily. I think you have stated and the staff has heard what the board desire is to include a 30% of within those bounds. And I think what it makes it a little more complicated is not just about changing a number on the code. It's just making sure that everything is lined up in the code and requires a public notice and public hearing before you make an ultimate decision. But I think what I understand is the board has been loud and clear as to what the staff needs to take into consideration before they bring a formal proposal to you.
Okay.
So tell them.
So we're good, right? Yeah, okay, let's go. Okay, let's get on to the next one.
Commissioner, will you say it one more time? 30% and, well, what are you specifically?
I'm just saying, my suggestion is kind of for a common sense approach, 30%, eliminate the long driveway restriction.
Anything to do with driveways.
Yeah, and let's move
But
on.
the rest
Let's
is
get this
subject
into
to
the
30% rule.
era of common sense and allowing citizens to do some things they would like to do within reason while still protecting the environment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much.
All righty. We're going to move into home dollar distribution model, PHSS. That's the flow chart issue kind of thing. And Shelley Romero, Shelley, and I have been working on this so everybody can see it, and then kind of go back with some guidance to see which direction we want to go with it. And you want to frame it, and Shelley can jump in, I can jump in.
So I'll frame it, and then Shelley can probably walk us through this. What I'm constantly concentrating on this flow chart, there has the label AV2.
Victor dot 2.
Yeah. So the other ones, they were just part of the file, but they're not part of the conversation.
Sure.
Okay, they just
So
went
Bravo and
out.
Charlie are not there.
Yeah. So let me take you back to early in the year, and this is related to the CIP, and Commissioner Hutchins serves as part of the CIP, where the CIP passed the resolution recommending the Board of County Commissioners to keep the home dollars distribution within the CIP context and process. You took that into consideration and voted against it on a 2-to-1 vote. And so what is left for staff to do is how we can probably develop on.
No, I'm almost there.
Hold on. Let me get him there.
What's
Right here.
What's
I got it.
OHHP?
Office
Well,
of
Housing-
Housing and Homeless Prevention within the Public Health and Social Services
Yeah,
Department.
we'll get to that.
Okay, thank
We're going to
you.
walk you through the matrix in a
I'm
second.
So
reading ahead.
we'll walk you through. So,
You have it?
I got it.
Okay.
So
just that
after the board voted on not having the home distribution as part of the CIP process, then staff was charged to develop somewhat of a model as to how that model can be supplemented outside of the CIP context. Through the last few months, first of all, we entertained a meeting. Commissioner Blake was there with all the mayors. It was a lunch meeting maybe 5 months ago, if not a little longer, where we county staff presenting somewhat of a different model as to how the home distribution dollars will be. So there has been a lot of interactions with particularly me and Shelley, with me with the city managers and Shelley with some of the elected officials with the City of Olympia particularly, as to how this model can put together. So during the interactions, the feedback, the ideas that I received from the city managers was that the elected officials from those cities, the council members, would like to be taking an actual vote as to how they may or may recommend some particular projects associated with this home distribution. Within that process, the chambers has also been involved and they have been going through the process as to how they can probably facilitate an agreement on this new model. So they have also been part of this conversation. So there has been a small group that has been meeting and just working through the different scenarios. It has been Commissioner Blake, Shelley Slatter, the Director of Public Health Social Services, Elizabeth Petrich, your prosecuting attorney, and myself. And we have met on a couple of occasions as to how this could be presented. We have come to a point in which, I think this model is proposed, and we would like to bring you back to you as a board, and I know Commissioner Blake will, at some point, would like to offer his perspective on this. So within that context, then, you like to walk us through the model, or you want me to?
Why don't you keep going,
Okay.
and I'll chime in if you need to, or if the commissioners have questions.
And
So this
one request, at some point, either one of us go through the blocks, just
Yeah.
go how the lines
Yeah,
dot.
that's
Okay,
right.
good, cool.
So
And
So let
diamonds.
me let me walk you through this. It started in this box, okay?
Which one?
Down below.
And this is the Housing Action Plan, which also known
The
as
HAT,
HAT. Okay. And this model is predicated on the expertise the Housing Action Team has within the context of understanding the subject, and that is the starting point of this particular model. So this model includes the Housing Action Team will develop strategic priorities, and those priorities will go to the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council as a vetting process, and everybody within that council will have the opportunity to provide those feedback on these strategic priorities. You see now this cloud on the side. This
Okay.
is not a subgroup. This is just taking some of the elected officials representing on the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council and perhaps having an actual vote on those strategic priorities. After that occurs, you move into this box. So these strategic priorities will be somewhat approved by this group, and those will be predicated on how this application review committee will play a role. So the application review committee at this point is going to be proposed by either the city managers and county managers, manager, or their designees. They will review the applications for this particular funding, and the application review will be predicated on the approved strategic priorities that has been by the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council, including the elected officials. So after this review committee is vetted with the applications, then that is being provided as a draft recommendations back to the Thurston Tribes Coordinating
Could I
Council.
ask a question at
Please
this
do.
point? You've got an asterisk here.
Where's an asterisk?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, no applicants or conflicts of interest. And you have staff and 3 jurisdictions and citizens at large. So what does that mean?
Yeah, the intent of this is, for instance, a particular city can probably submit for a project, right?
Okay,
So in that case, the representative from that city may not be part of the review process.
okay, that's that little subnote
Right.
there.
So that's the intent of that.
Okay, okay, good enough. Makes sense.
So after that committee goes through the applications, develop a list of potential recommendations for draft projects, that will go back to the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council, go through the same process. The elected officials will approve, and that will be a final recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for you to take a final action, because that is not going to change.
Okay.
And within the Board of County Commissioners, you could have the option to hold a public hearing. I don't believe it's required, but you could hold a public hearing if you choose to before you can make a final decision. Questions on the model that I just walked you
Oh,
through?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then Shelley needs to talk about the OHHP then.
Yeah.
That's
And
fine.
then you.
No rush.
Do you want to talk about the OHHP?
Oh, sure. I was
As it
just-
relates to this?
Oh, I was just sharing that that acronym is part of my department reorganization. Our housing team was formerly called Housing and Community Renewal. It's now the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention, to be more inclusive and to focus on this really important issue, since you declared a homeless crisis in June. And we will be adding new members to our team, such as a homeless coordinator. And they will participate in this process in the application review committee box.
So my question is, what would the time frame look like from the time of the
Start.
entrance into this maze to the outcome, the final decision, under this proposal versus what the time frame is currently that we have, or we've been using?
I can share with you what our timeline is now, and I will say it's somewhat urgent that we finalize a model and improved system in the next month or so, because our process is that we will need to develop the priorities that will inform the RFP. The county commissioners need to approve the RFP so that we can release it in February. So you'll need to approve it by January. We need to release it in February. Funding application reviews happen in March. We like decisions to be made in May so that we can have executed contracts in place by July 1, which is our funding cycle for most of these funds.
So currently, that's a 7-month process from entry to approval?
Currently, yes. I mean, that regardless of how you are working this process, it's something that we work on throughout the year. It's an ongoing process.
But this is a different process then than we're currently using.
Yes, would be a new process for this year.
But it has to adhere to the same 7 months requirement because of the RFPs going out and being funded?
Approximately. It's really more like a 6-month process. But
Okay.
yes, we typically every year begin having these type of conversations in the fall so that we can prepare for a winter release with spring decisions.
So even though it looks like it's more cumbersome, it's full of review and oversight and review, but it still falls within, it's not delaying anything really.
No,
It's just adding to certain people's
can't.
schedule.
It can't. 'cause
No.
Okay, good.
February, we have to get the RFP.
That is the key.
Yes.
We cannot delay it.
Okay, good,
Yes.
thank you.
And I think
That's a
this,
stopgap.
what you may not be able to see from all the arrows on this is actually a consolidated process because it's using existing bodies we already have instead of creating completely separate bodies.
Yeah, because we can't delay or stop the dollars from going.
Yeah.
I guess this is directed towards the county manager. Recognizing we have a time frame that we're working within, on this maze that you just guided us through, you've got public hearing after the decision is made. I'm curious about that. If we're going to include the public to have input into this process, shouldn't we at least put the public hearing somewhere before the decision is made, so we can have
Well,
that input.
So I don't believe you need to have a public hearing. That's an option for you.
for the,
And the arrow will be also an arrow going back. So this is, if I may, you need an arrow going up to the Board of County Commissioners decision point as well. This is not intended for you to make a decision, then holding a public hearing. That's not the process that you hold. This is an option. Whether you like to hold a public hearing, that's an option for you. And you will hold a public hearing within the context of the approval process of the Board of County Commissioners. If that makes
So that box doesn't even need to be there.
Yeah,
well,
and just as an option.
Yeah.
I guess that needs to be somewhat explained, the community, that there's groups out there that are concerned about this activity, and I'd like to make sure they know that we're not going to make a decision and then ask them what they think.
No, and I appreciate that. And again, this is a very high level model. There's a lot of activities within. For instance,
Okay.
Robin just asked, where is the RFP approval process for the Board of County Commissioners? That needs to be added.
Yeah.
So there, but at a high level approach.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for your comments.
I defer to the chair.
okay, well, we still need to, so I think, and correct me if I have it right, the next step, if there's a head nod in affirmation of this, you're still welcome to ask questions of it, because it's been a very long process to get to this level of acceptance. But two things. One, next step is to kind of go back out and ask around to other jurisdictions if they are acceptable to this, and if any minor or technical changes and adjustments. And that's one question. And the other one is the application review committee, and where that might go or not go. I'm looking at either one, because I know kind of where we're at, but I just want to make sure that's the next hurdles to get through.
Yes. As Ramiro reviewed the process that we've been through thus far, there was an initial version proposed by the county. The city had a version. We've found this to be a compromise of those versions that's as inclusive as possible, because we really value our partnership with the cities, and we want to have an inclusive process where there's multiple levels for all stakeholders, not just our government partners, but and not just our providers, but all of the other stakeholders in our community that are very interested in this issue. So we've tried to provide as many opportunities as possible for engagement and inclusivity and transparency. And so this is just kind of a hybrid compromise that I believe the next step would be for the county manager to take it back to the city managers group to share with your affirmation. That's the word that I'm looking for, because we don't need a final approval of this. We just need to be able to continue to work with our partners to create a funding system that everyone feels happy going forward with for this 19 funding year.
And I would opt to take the public hearing thing off until we get that.
Yeah, I'll
clear.
take that out. Yeah, and it creates more
Is
confusion.
that all right? The public hearing piece of it?
Yeah.
Yes, that was just responding to trying to provide multiple
clarity,
levels
yeah.
for
So we'll-
people to have a voice.
Right now it's confusing. more
And
than it's
again,
clear.
there's a lot of steps that we need to add it to this, really.
All right.
So if the board feels comfortable for me to go ahead and send this to the city managers.
Well, he has another
As a
question.
proposal, I'll work with Shelley, and she's in the process of developing some bullet points. They will further describe this proposed model.
All right. What do you got?
I guess because we have interest groups that are concerned about what we're doing here, and probably we're talking about a substantial amount of money that is going to be allocated at some point. I don't know how much.
$5 million.
$5 million, which to me, the public should be very interested in that. I would, rather than remove the public hearing, I would say reposition.
It'll come to
the
that.
public
It'll come to
hearing
that
at
when you
some
come to the
point.
budget portion of the.
Oh, okay. And then the other thing is, I see we've got two at-large positions. who's going to select those individuals that would sit? I take it those are citizens at large, possibly, that are not government people?
Subject matter experts, SMEs.
Yeah. And you sit on the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council, I believe.
Yes, but I don't think I'm an expert enough, so would we have,
Well,
do we
that-
have any citizen involvement here for input?
That will be part of the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council as to who will be the best person to suit that need.
So they'll make that decision at a later date?
But if I may, the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council does business beyond this model of home allocation dollars. As you know, they have many teams and they look at so many different activities. So when we're looking at the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council, I will encourage the board to look from that perspective, from a larger umbrella, not just related to this particular model related to the home dollar distribution.
So you're looking for affirmation? I affirm you both.
You just need to affirm this.
Yes, that's
not
what I
them.
mean.
Okay,
Are you good?
I'm good.
So far? All right, you're good.
Okay, well, so we'll move forward.
right.
You and I will work through the details.
Okay,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
Thanks, Shelley.
Come on back now. Thank you, Shirley. All right, let's go with the
Lake Lawrence.
yeah. Lake Lawrence LMD budget discussion.
Hello, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Hello.
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. This is a follow-up from October 2nd. I was asked to put together an illustration of the costs that we were talking about. So specifically, we were talking about interfund costs for Lake Lawrence, Lake Management District. And so what I would like to do on the back page of the memo is walk you through
It's a single letter.
Yeah, I gotta find it. I'm getting there. I saw it a second ago, doggone it. There it is. Fund mitigation.
I
think you just
I
passed
think
it.
you just passed it.
Ta-da. That's it.
that one.
No, that-
This one?
Back
no.
page.
Oh, ta-da.
How come I don't have?
Oh, there you go. Yours looks
On
like
the-
it's
on the
stapled,
back-
but it's not.
Commissioner,
There
on
you
the
go.
backside.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, I thought there was numerous pages
No,
here.
no,
No.
it's just
I
one.
thought you left me out, but you did not.
It should just be a memo cover page and
Oh,
then
okay.
okay. So starting over on the left, the revenue at the top, this is total revenue for Noxious Weed and 2 Lake Management Districts. And as you move down, I've divided up, Noxious Weeds is 64%, and that is as a percentage of the overall revenue for those 3 funds. Long Lake is 23%, and then you can see the dollar amount, and Lake Lawrence is 13% and the dollar amount. Moving over to the right, staffing costs. Noxious Weeds is 82% of the total staffing costs for those 3, for that division. Long Lake is 12%, and Lake Lawrence is 6%. Interfund costs. So there's the total of the interfund costs. Noxious Weeds is 80% of that, of the total of the interfund costs. Long Lake is 17%, and Lake Lawrence is 13%.
3%.
Or excuse me, 3%, thank you. Those interfund costs as a percentage of revenue, Noxious Weeds is 36%, Long Lake 22%, and Lake Lawrence is 7%. So when we go back and we look at the interfund cost for Lake Lawrence, which is 3% of the total cost of interfunds for that division, that's $7,362. Of that dollar amount, $4,176 are indirect costs. And those costs are a result of the approved cost plan and makeup. I put some bullets there so you can see kind of what those generally are. Those are allocated based off of various different allocation methods. And then the internal service costs are $3,186.
Okay, just a quick question.
Please.
Okay, on revenue, you add up to 100%. Staffing, you add up to 100. Interfund, you add up to 100. But on interfund costs as a percent of revenue, I don't understand why that only adds up to 65%.
Because that is only the interfund cost of the overall revenue. So you take the.
Oh, those aren't dollars, it's a percentage.
So you take the, let's
That's
say
what
the
it is.
interfund cost of noxious weeds of $191,884, right? Are you with me on that one?
Well, which one are you working
So
on?
let's take this number,
Okay,
right? The 191,484.
okay.
So that is 80% of this amount, right?
Okay.
But it's 36% of the total revenue.
Well, I will say that's as clear as mud to me. I do not understand that breakdown,
So you gotta do it again, sorry.
but I don't know if you guys, do you get it?
Can you walk us through it again?
I'm kind of there.
Sorry.
I thought I did until it was explained.
Start at 2019. See 2019 in the upper left?
Yes.
Walk us through the gray and then count each one and how they relate to each block so we can figure the numbers with you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So revenue, $821,479.
That's of all the blocks there, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And so 64% of that revenue is noxious weeds, is allocated to noxious weeds.
Directly below.
Long Lake, 23%, and Lake Lawrence, 13%.
Okay.
The staffing costs, were you going to say something?
I
Please.
would just jump in on the revenue. It's not that the revenue is allocated, it's that it's collected by each of those entities and adds up to 821,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Staffing costs, $395,544. 82% of that is noxious weeds, so that percentage of $326,755. Long Lake is 12%, and Lake Lawrence is 6%. So staffing costs within that division, 6% are with Lake Lawrence, 12% Long Lake, and 82% noxious weeds.
Any questions so far on that?
Well, I really don't understand why, so noxious weeds has more people, it sounds like to me,
No, it's more of the level of effort and,
but more FTEs as well, aren't there?
well, this,
How do you get to the 326?
that's a good question. It's,
75.5.
Yeah.
See where I'm going?
Yep.
Under the staffing costs, we see the total is 395, almost 400,000. But for the noxious weed directly under at 82%, how many FTEs is that at 326?
And it might be some vehicles and something else, I
No,
suppose.
it's
No, it's
Just
staffing.
staffing.
That's
Oh,
just
just
staffing.
staffing.
labor.
Okay.
Just the staffing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So it's
no-
labor
No vehicles,
hours.
no,
Okay.
just labor hours.
And
Because,
so,
because it has two asterisks there, and it goes down even below, it says extra help budget excluded.
yes, so for noxious weeds, there's grant money that comes in, and with that grant money, there are extra staff, extra help that is brought in during the summertime, and so we took those out to be able to compare apples to apples.
Okay, so
I'm looking for the,
So let me ask this question, just, it has something to do with it, I'm trying to figure it all out. But let's just take Long Lake. Long Lake has, I think,
it makes
Eight?
190,000.
yes, but Long Lake has 8 drainages that come into Long Lake that are contributing to pollution in Long Lake? I'm not sure of that number. There's 6 or 8 of them that road runoff, yard, whatever it is, that drain into the lake. Are those even considered as part of the overall concern of what goes on in that lake, or are you just trying to figure out the amount committed by the Lake District people as far as revenue? In other words, is there some benefit on runoff, for an example, that should be addressed towards this whole complicated system that you've put together? I'm concerned, how come they don't get some benefit? Because we, if we're the ones that are in charge of these 6, 8, or 10 runoff sites that are contributing to problems in Long Lake, why are we solely charging Long Lake residents and not putting some benefit from maybe county tax funds into solving that particular problem? Is there any discussion on that?
So let me start. Let's see if I can understand your question.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
First of
Okay.
all.
Yeah.
And I think is what you're saying is the 12% allocation on staffing costs. Is that has a relationship on the different drainages that contributes to Long Lake?
Yeah, that's kind of right.
Yeah.
We received a letter from the Long Lake management people that are addressing
Yeah,
this.
So the answer is no. And let me tell you why, because the staffing cost is in relation to the work plan that each of the lake management districts approved on a yearly basis. So staff has gone through the process to determine what is the level of the staffing levels that needs to be put in place to support the work plan the lake management districts have approved. You also asked whether the county can participate financially to this
Yes.
particular program. That is a subsidy that you may consider adding from the general fund. And that is perhaps a different set of discussions, whether you'd like to entertain that discussion during the budget deliberations next week. But I believe that is a different question that you ask, whether the county is willing to subsidize the activities of the lake management districts.
Okay, let me interject something on a follow-up of what you're commenting on. Is you're asking, would we be willing to subsidize their activity?
No, I was answering your question, Commissioner.
Oh, okay, but my question is, are we recognizing those 10 drainage culverts that come from all different areas, roadways and ditches and such, and that runs into the lake, and that is causation for the problem that they're dealing with? And that's what they're asking this board to look into. Is that part of the equation as well? So it's not like we're going to be subsidizing, we're just going to be responsible for our particular portion of this workload.
I read that letter from the Long Lake Management District.
Okay, good.
And I know exactly what you're asking for. Perhaps what was missing in that letter is the discount the Lake Management District have on the stormwater fees.
Okay.
So if we were to put everything on the table, let's say the county contributes water and everything else, so everything has to be brought up to the same level. So the Lake Management District will have to pay the fair fee, and then we can consider as a county as to how we can contribute towards that effort. So what I was missing in that letter, with all due respect, and hopefully Mr. Carmen is listening to this interaction, it was not stated the discount the Lake Management District have on the stormwater fees.
Do you know what that figure might be? Do you have any idea? I mean, is it a fair discount? Has it taken all these facts into consideration?
A discount, I believe, is fair, because no other citizen has a discount on this process.
But we don't know what that discount is particularly.
So I think for me to answer your question whether it's fair, that is very subjective for each individual who wants to listen to data.
So possibly that's not within the realm of this discussion at this time. Maybe we can take that up as a separate item because we need to get this approved?
Yeah, maybe if you'd like to have a larger conversation as to how the whole funding options as to the lake management districts, I will encourage the board to have work sessions in 2019. Because trying to answer all your questions requires a lot of work, because whether we bring in the stormwater fees
Yes.
as part of the conversation, and the lake management district need to understand what the additional impact to their funds will be by bringing the fees to 100%. And then we can have a conversation, how much the county contributes to the waters and drainage, as you stated.
Okay, so for the sake of trying to simplify things, which I know is hard to do with government, I have a hard time arguing these numbers without a total understanding of them. I realize that you folks in government know about things like one fund can't fund another or benefit another, and different things like that. Everybody has to pay their fair share. I'm all about that, but that's kind of where I'm going. Is this a fair breakdown? Because the citizens that I've talked to about this question whether or not it truly is a fair allocation of the funds that they've committed. So what has that response been from the communities that are affected by this? I'll try to go there and see if maybe I can't reach some kind of
Before
determination.
Jennifer can get into the details of the interactions with the lake management districts, I would like to address in terms of the fairness that you stated.
Yes.
This is a model that has been applied to all county businesses. This is not a model that we have envisioned or developed just for the lake management districts. This is a model that has been applied to internal and external services. The internal interfund costs and internal services, this is nothing that we have taken a piece of that and developed a different model for the lake management district. So the fairness is there, because you as a Board of County Commissioners have applied this process to everyone, including your internal offices and departments.
Okay.
That's how the model is fair.
Okay.
We have not gone beyond that
So
process.
it's equitable.
Okay. I guess then my follow-up to that is, as we went into this process, trying to get this fair and equitable settlement, if you will, at one point, I'll just use Lawrence Lake on this particular example. I guess the staffing cost was, I think it was 15%. Then through some other manipulation of numbers, and I don't say that in a derogatory sense, it was down to 10%, and now it's at 6%. So I'm just trying to get a handle on that, and has the community that's affected, they have a committee out there, have they somewhat accepted, including Long Lake, but I'm just using Lawrence on this example, Long on the other example. So are we kind of getting somewhere? Or is there a possibility, if we were to move forward on this budgetary item, that we would not necessarily set precedents so that we could come back possibly next year when we have more time? Because it seems like we never have enough time to delve into the different issues that we're expected to deal with. I just want to be fair with all parties concerned. So as long as we don't set precedents, I'm probably almost willing to take a gamble and go for it.
You know, setting precedent, Commissioner, because anything can be changed in terms of the budget allocation.
Okay.
If I may, on the distribution, you talk about the 30%, 10%, and now 6%. This is really in response to the lake management districts as to how much time they would like staff to be allocated to their programs.
Okay.
So if anything, if I may, this is a direct response from their comments.
So we're helping them out in the end.
Well,
here.
what I would say is that there's different percentages that have been presented because we have tried in different ways to explain the information. So when you originally talked about 15%, we were talking specifically about one position, the aquatic resource specialist, and where they would spend their time.
Okay.
On which programs. So 15% of that aquatic resource specialist time would be dedicated to Lake Lawrence. But there's more than just the aquatic resource specialist that does work for Lake Lawrence. So it's not just that individual by themselves. There's other individuals that do work, and that's why we've talked about where now with staffing, it's 6% of the overall staffing is allocated to Lake Lawrence. So there's just different ways of explaining it, and so that's what we've been trying to do, is explain it in different ways. With respect to Long Lake and Lake Lawrence and those steering committees, my understanding is there's been several meetings with Lake Lawrence and with Long Lake. Specifically with Lake Lawrence, there was a 3-hour meeting yesterday again talking about this. The feedback that I got was that while they don't agree, they understand.
That was both of the management districts?
The Long Lake has already they already have said, we understand, we get it.
Okay.
Lake Lawrence was the one that was still having questions specifically about the interfund costs. I think I believe, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe they feel like they should not have to pay any interfund costs. I believe they feel like the citizens of Thurston County benefit from Lake Lawrence and therefore do not believe they should have to pay interfund costs.
Okay, that is the argument that kind of goes back to what the county manager has said, that they must also be getting some kind of a stormwater
They both are.
reduction
They
or
both
something.
get a break, so if.
So that helps in that area to those individual taxpayers that are paying into this lake management district.
Absolutely. So as
Okay.
they see as an interfund cost, they also need to be seeing the benefit they get on the stormwater
Okay.
Fees.
I guess what I would do, if we need to move forward on this thing at some point because of the time element involved in the budget process. Is that right?
Decisions.
And I want
next
to
week.
respect that because we have, I hate to even say this, we have bigger fish to fry.
Is a $310 million
Yes, well, I realize
budget that you
that.
might be considering.
So, I guess what I would ask of you, if we give this a thumbs up, would you at least include a discussion on Lawrence Lake and Long Lake to us so we can have some kind of a briefing to allow their concerns to be aired about what the total county maybe contributes to the problem, how much we're fixing. The letter that Doug
So
wrote.
will that be a briefing next year?
I suppose so.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
we'll-
I mean, I know we're up against a time frame,
yeah,
but
we'll organize a briefing.
but if we could get into, I would like to have those folks know that we're taking their concerns seriously. But right now, we're kind of in a pickle and we need to move forward, I guess.
So I'll work with Jennifer to organize a briefing next year.
And I need to refer to my seatmate, the county chair here, to see if he agrees with that. Okay.
Okay, moving forward. Thank you, commissioners.
Well, it's as clear as mud to me, so, and I know it is to those other folks. So we'll get to it. We'll get it figured out.
In 4 minutes or less, legislative update, the citizen,
Yeah, and that will hopefully take only 5 minutes, commissioners. You'd receive not just one, but two pieces of correspondence, and this is related to the Thurston, the shared legislative agenda. I briefed to you the shared legislative agenda included 4 elements: the improvement of the I-5 corridor, the remodeling of the Veterans Hub, the recouping courts, the court impact fees, and the Regional Training Center for Law Enforcement. The gist of those 2 pieces of documents.
this is the shared. Okay.
Yeah, the shared legislative agenda. No, it's not the counties. And I think I addressed that yesterday, right? But I responded to your email yesterday. But anyways, well. So anyways, maybe I can answer your questions at this point. So the correspondence that you receive is encouraging the commissioners to include the regional climate mitigation plan as part of the shared legislative agenda. Okay,
I see.
and they have to. So also, I received a couple of questions from Ms. Kronberg, and it was related to the questions as to who is part of the legislative agenda, shared legislative agenda. So the shared legislative agenda is composed by representatives
Thank you, Jennifer.
from Thurston County. I represent the county, and all the city managers from the cities of Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, and Yelm, representatives from the Port of Olympia, representatives from the South Puget Sound Community College, representatives from the chambers, and a representative from the Thurston County Regional Council, TRPC. The other question is how the decision-making process goes. This is a consensus conversation as to how the elements should be put in place as part of the legislative agenda. And the touch response is through the decision-making process is a couple of things. It has to be inclusive and unique to Thurston County region as to how those items come to the shared legislative agenda. It results in a benefit of more than a single member entity, demonstrated commitment to member corporations, provide an inter-legislative district cooperation collaboration, non-supplantive individual members is requested. And through the process, all the 4 items are specific as to what the request is to the legislature. The climate action plan as presented and you're considering as part of phase 2 is broad in scope. They're really including into a legislative agenda without having a specific ask becomes a little more difficult. And this is more than just Thurston County. Is the state, is the country, and perhaps is the world. So, and that's how the decision-making process has gone through, and including this on the shared legislative agenda. And the response that I attach is the response that are going to be sending to some of the citizens that have also sent to, I believe, Dogma from the chambers, and this response will be going out to all of them. And that's why I just want to close the loop with you.
Okay.
No action needed, by the way.
Okay.
Are you looking for comments on this at all?
If you like. I wasn't requesting for any action, but if you like.
I mean, aren't we developing plans, if you will, to make us more efficient, for an example, so we don't drive as much? I mean, that would be one issue I'd use as an example, but I think we're doing other things as well, but does the public not know that we're taking some of these actions when it comes like to the e-inspections and trying to get more efficient so we don't drive all around all the time?
Let me answer that question a little bit broader. You took an action in setting the targets as to how you would like to reduce in the region the carbon monoxide.
Okay.
And that has been already taking place. The county also participated in phase 1 of this particular effort across the region. Right now, you're contemplating joining phase 2 of the climate action plan with all the rest of the jurisdictions. I have a financial plan that will be presented for you tomorrow for you to consider. Okay. As you may recall, 2 weeks ago, we added language on the interlocal agreement that addresses most of the concerns of the commissioners. The next step is what is the financial plan to participate on phase 2. But I think what you asking is, does the result of the phase 2 plan because the phase two is going to be develop a suite of strategies as to what each jurisdiction can take and start implementing this particular model. So at that point is when perhaps we have something specific that we could probably ask to the legislature to ask, not just to Thurston County, perhaps the region.
Okay.
So including this particular item on this legislative agenda is too premature because we don't have anything specific to ask.
Okay.
So if anything, if the commissioners decide to participate on the phase two, then next year we might be in the position to have something specific and more tangible.
I think we did, we just didn't have the funding.
Yeah, so and that's the only bridge that I need to cross with you
Sure.
is just the funding. Tomorrow in my budget presentation.
Oh, okay.
Oh, boy, okay.
I got 43 cents.
Yeah.
You only have 12.
From our budget person,
You took
probably.
already
Yeah. She's been
22
robbing
cents
your
from
piggy
me.
bank.
Stay out of my piggy.
Okay, good enough.
All righty.
So I will ask the commissioners, would they like to give you the floor?
Can you get through PIO first and then we'll come back to you? Is that all right? I got to get them out of here, sorry. It's not on.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Hey, what's up?
So last week we reached 4,000 likes on Facebook.
Oh, great.
We're at 4,064 likes right now, and we've achieved about 2,400 new followers across all our social platforms.
And our goal was 5?
Our goal is 5,000 for Facebook.
You're almost there.
I'm also working on an annual report. I'll be presenting the annual report to you for our communications plan in November. But here's some quick snapshots. We received 40 photo submissions for our Thurston 2040 photo contest. This is the photo contest we partnered with Long Range Planning on for a public outreach campaign on the comprehensive plan update. And I'll also be talking about our citizen engagement tool and how we're using the county news page and the newsletter in that plan as well. Yesterday, the auditor's office began providing passport services. They're the only passport services agency in the county that's open 5 days a week for full business hours. Public outreach for that included a passport services video, PSA, a news release and a story, and a radio interview with Mary, which will air on 96.1.
But it can't be renewals.
No, it cannot be renewals. Renewals goes through a different process. This is only
So
for
startups.
This is only for people that are applying for a passport.
Right. Startups, yeah. Okay.
And our October episode of Thurston County Connection is now available on YouTube and Comcast Channel 3. Commissioner Hutchings discusses suicide awareness and prevention. And the next video project we'll be working on is a recruitment video with HR for recruitment in Thurston County. And finally, we are hosting a series of open houses on the Courthouse and Civic Center project. Today, there is 5 of them taking place over at the Olympia Center. I think 2 of them already happened. There will be some later on in the afternoon, beginning at 1:30 to 3, 3 to 4:30, and 6 to 7:30. These open houses are an opportunity for the public to share their experiences about our current courthouse and provide feedback on what they'd like to see in a new courthouse and civic center. Any questions? That's all I have.
No.
Excellent. Did you want to
Nope, I think my,
bring her to the mic, or you want to?
Sure.
Or after, whatever you want. Yeah, it's not a problem.
So my question is, since this
Speaking
is,
to the mic, yeah.
since this is obviously something that's shared broadly, you're saying that at this point you need more specific things that you would include on that agenda. It can't just be that plan because it's just doesn't have specific actions yet.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is correct.
And so if there were specific actions, those could be included.
And in fact, participating on this conversation, this came as part of the conversation as the group. And I believe the conversation was that at the phase 2 of the climate mitigation plan, that everybody's involved, and hopefully the commissioners will approve the funding model. That is going to give us the specific as to what each jurisdiction is going to take pieces of that, start implementing to address the context. So.
Yeah, I was trying to to find a way for the state to help finance
What?
the 43,000 for the, you know,
For the county
client,
as
for
a
the
whole.
county, you know,
yeah,
that should
and-
be, that you would
and,
think that the state would be.
I appreciate that. I don't think you were clear
Okay.
on your message, but I appreciate that.
Yes, well,
However, the time is of the essence, because if we wait until the legislature funds the 43,000, that will not be until July of next year.
mhm.
And I believe the phase 2 is moving forward even as we speak.
Okay, and and is the county have its own legislative agenda that could be included on? Because I'm sure you.
I
we
think
have-
we're in the process of drafting the county's legislative
Mhm.
agenda. And
Might we take, can I comment on this?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
you're a commissioner.
Well, when we talk about specific agenda items, say for the 43,000, I mean, like the county manager said, we'll be too late if we wait, you know. But we are addressing things all the time to the legislature, and it has more to do with unfunded mandates that are creating quite a drain on our budget, especially our current expense budget. And if we could alleviate some of that drain, and I'll just use as an example, the courts had about $800,000 cut from them, which we had to make up without any real revenue to do so. So we had to kind of rob from Peter to pay Paul, if you will.
She knows this.
And so those are the kind of things we're doing so that we will have revenue to meet this type of a requirement as we move forward.
Okay.
So it's more than just an individual specific request. It's a broad, we need some help, here's why, here's the total picture.
Okay. So is there any point in putting that on the county's legislative agenda or not? at
You mean
this
that
point?
$43,000 as a specific issue?
Yeah,
I don't
Or-
think so, because we want to keep that list quite short and concise, because when you're dealing with the legislative process, you just have to realize those people are inundated up there with many, many, many requests. And the shorter and more concise our request is, the more likelihood we have of success.
okay, all right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, is there anything else for today? I'm not going to go into advisory boards, commissioners, items, so no. Anything else? No?
Could I comment on an advisory board and commission issue, just a discussion I've had with La Bonita?
Sure.
I've been contacted by individuals that have contemplated serving on boards and commissions here at the county. We always have vacancies. We're always looking for people to help us out on these boards and commissions. Recently, we put a new restriction on our process, and I don't know exactly how much time that restriction takes.
Just a new restriction.
Well, it has to do with training, and would you like to delve into this?
It was at the request of the board
Yes.
that we developed somewhat of a training to all those individuals who would like to serve, represent the county. And that training includes sexual harassment, all of the above, and with the intent to reduce the risk to the county.
The exposure.
That's all.
And that was a response as a request from the board as to how we develop this online training. And from your request as well, we start adding that required training to those who would like to serve.
Yes, that's true, but it seems like the bureaucratic process has expanded that to the point that it creates quite a burden to the individuals that might otherwise serve on one of these boards. All I'm doing is mentioning that I've asked La Bonita to look into the possibility of streamlining that process so we get the benefit maybe of the training without such a long time commitment in doing so. So I'm just asking that we review our application process to see if we can't streamline it, just a little bit. Because it's part of the resistance I think we run into with citizens wanting to serve.
And I believe the training is an hour's worth of online training. They don't have to come, and they don't have to attend any, it's an online training.
I think it's more than that, but we'll have to
Yeah.
discuss that.
So, and that was the intent, is to consolidate a
Yes.
lot of trainings that perhaps even we have to take, which is 8 hours or 4 hours here.
Yep.
It's consolidating into a single, at least for the citizens to understand, and for us, from the county's point of view, reduce the risk.
And maybe it's just a case of we need to clarify that with them. I think they get overwhelmed immediately when they go to the site and kind of like it's maybe a little more complicated than it needs to be. We still want them to treat people with respect, treat people like you'd, I don't know, treat your mother, or, you know, try to be nice. I mean, that's what we're going for. That's oversimplifying everything. But we just want to see if we can't lessen the burden. I mean, we're asking these people to commit a lot of time. I just ask that it be reviewed. That's all. So you might hear more about this from La Bonita as she puts something together.
All right. Anything else?
No.
That is the end of our work session for today, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.